Big sales. That's the way I love to start a show, man. Tone's got the best attitude. He really does. He's got the best attitude. Sills, let's have a great show. I go, what do you think? This is Ben Simmons, man? We don't take nights off here, Hoss. You know, that's actually one thing that I will tell you. One of the things that I was taught from my failure in the NFL, never take anything for granted. Never take anything for granted. You know, as much as I kind of was my own sabotage guy when it came to my NFL career, one thing that thing and that experience did teach me is don't take anything for granted. Show up every day. Give your best effort. No matter if you're sick or what, just show up, man. Just show up and have the best effort you possibly can. And get this, people respect you for that. I think that's one of the reasons why many people come back and watch us, because what we do each and every single day, we try to do the very best we possibly can and putting on one of the best shows we possibly can. Every day we do that. It's always been a mantra of mine. You know, my grandfather was a blue-collar dude. Went to work every day, fireman, drove a cement truck, you know, did all that stuff. Was a lobster man. Showed up every day to work, man. And you know what? That so reminds me of the Eagles and the Heat. These guys just show up every day because there's a culture in your house. There's a mindset. You know, when you live in a culture, you become part of the culture, winning and losing. How many times do we see that in sports and in business and in life? You got a shitty environment. You become sometimes part of that environment. No matter what, right? No matter what, man. Crazy time right now. Anyway, NFL is always front page. Sports is a front page right now. And I got to say this to you. Let me show you why the Philadelphia Eagle fans are always bitching at the national media, because a story's playing itself out now. I'll get to the whole James Harden deal here in a second. And you got a player who's never won anything trying to dictate policy inside your organization. But that starts with the owner. What's the storyline from last night's Lakers and Nuggets game? It's not that the Nuggets are the best offensive team in the NBA. What can the Lakers do? How did the Lakers lose this? Dude, the Lakers were a playing team. The LA Lakers were a playing team. But yet that's the narrative. It's like the Cowboys. All due respect to the Cowboys, but what have you done in 30 years? And when you play the Cowboys and when you're the Eagles and you're the better team, you're the better roster. Hey, and you know what's crazy too about the Eagles? For the last 25 years almost, you guys have been the best team in the NFC East. But it's always the narrative is what? The Cowboys. Like last night, I don't give a shit about what the Lakers didn't do. The Nuggets are better. Personally, you ready for this? I think the Nuggets are going to sweep them. And that is something Adam Silver and the NBA don't want to hear. One of their Tiffany teams going to get swept in the Western Conference Finals. How many people really believe that the Lakers are going to win one game? Maybe one. Maybe. But you're not better than them. They got the best player on the planet. They got the best offense. I mean, I don't know. But yet here we always do, like we do with the Dallas Cowboys. We always talk about the Cowboys like the Cowboys have won Super Bowl championships. Hey, it just shows you what the media does and how the media covers certain teams. The most covered teams in the last, will we say that in the last 10 years? Lakers and Cowboys. You got a bubble championship and you got no championships with the Cowboys. Yet we cover those two teams like these two teams are the Patriots and the Golden State Warriors. They're not. The most successful team in the NFC in the last what? Would we not agree? Who's been the most successful team in the NFC in the last 23 years? Is there anybody more successful? Now, the Giants have 2 championships in that span. Anybody else in the last 23 years in the NFC that has been more successful? The Rams have been to 2, 1-1. The Eagles have been to 3. 49ers have been to a few. Yeah, but Sway, the Giants over the last, 15 years? I mean, what have they really done? What have the Giants done in the last decade? I mean, it's been a horrible decade for the New York Giants. Who's been the best team? Seattle? I don't know. It ain't your 40 whiners. That's for damn sure. I mean, it's been the Eagles, right? Have they not been? They've been the best franchise in the last 23 years. Yeah, we cover the Cowboys. Or the media covers the Cowboys. And you would swear that that was like a team that's having the same success as the Patriots. All right. Hey, before we get going here, and before I get into the James Harden stuff, appreciate it, Neil. Thank you for coming aboard. Guys, Friday, thank you again. We're going to have 2 Hall of Fame voters on. By the way, my boy Howard Balzer, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, he covers the Phoenix Cardinals / Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to get his thoughts on Jonathan Gannon so far, on what Gannon's impact has been out there. And I want to know if they're going to cut loose a D-Hop June 1. I want to know what his take is on Jonathan Gannon. Hall of Fame voter Howard Balzer will join us at 4:30, and then our usual conversation with our friend Jason Cole, 5:30, another Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. So we'll have him at 5:30 Eastern. All right. So Deshaun Jackson has informed the Philadelphia Eagles that he would like to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. Really a great career. What was he, a second-round pick? What was Deshaun Jackson? Was he a second-round pick? He was a second-round pick. Number 49 in 2008, was it? He was the 49th player taken. I think that rings a bell, right? 2009, second-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. On the All-Rookie team. Reception, 641. Yards, 11,000 yards. You know what? That's actually more yards than I thought that he had. I can't believe it. This guy's actually got more receiving yards than Lynn Swann. 58 touchdowns. And there it is. The 49th player taken in the 2008 draft. Where would you rank him? He wants to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. Where would you rank Deshaun Jackson in Eagle history? Top 10? Top 15? Top 20? Top 30? Where would you put him in Eagle history? I think it's pretty cool he wants to retire an Eagle. Wow, Fly says top 5? I don't think so. Top 10. Wow. Top 5 Eagle wide receivers ever. That's a good way to look at it. Is he one of your top 5 wide? Who's been a better wide receiver in Eagle history than Deshaun Jackson? Mike Quick? I don't know what you call Carmichael. Kind of like a hybrid tight end, flanker, I guess. What other wide receiver put up the numbers consistently year in and year out? Hey, Tone, do me a favor. How many years did he play? Deshaun Jackson in I think there were 2 stints too also for him in Philadelphia. Irving Fryer. So Fryer, Quick. T.O., no way. T.O. had 1 year. You don't put T.O. in your best wide receiving group all time because he had one season. That's not a career. That's a year. I didn't ask you. Okay, I didn't ask you who had the best receiving year in the history of the Eagles. I asked you who are your top receivers in the history of your franchise. Deshaun Jackson played 8 years in Philly. That's a career. That's a career. Calvin Williams, no way. Mike Quick, Jeremy Maclin, D-Jax is better than that. Deshaun Jackson's better than Jeremy Maclin. I'm not even going to debate that. I'm not even going to debate that. Deshaun over Fryer? Yeah, I would say so too. I would make this point to you that Mike Quick and Deshaun Jackson had the greatest wide receiver careers in the Super Bowl era of any wide receiver that's played in Philly since 1967. Okay? Those are your two best wideouts. Now, Devontae and AJ have every opportunity to put their names alongside those guys. But one season or two, and by the way, Devontae's on his way to being considered in that conversation soon. I would say another 2 years. You could start putting that conversation for Devontae Smith on where his place is in Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver history. Okay? Pinkston, come on, man. I mean, your two best wide. Carmichael again. I think Carmichael is a little bit of a hybrid. He's a tight end, flanker, slot receiver. I'll tell you what, he was a unicorn before his time. He really was a unicorn. Harold Carmichael was a unicorn. I mean, he was a mismatch everywhere you put him on the field. Carmichael, I get it, but I don't know wideout, man. I mean, a 6'9" wide, how they used him and how Vermeil used him in that offense was weird. He is a Hall of Famer. I get it. I'm with you. But I'll tell you what, and Carmichael, again, you could, like, in today's NFL, Carmichael would be insane to try to defend. Can you imagine throwing the football into the end zone to a wide receiver you can't touch who's 6'9" and has hands like that? Harold Carmichael would be undefensible today. You couldn't touch him. Back then, you mugged him. Okay? Yeah, but Quick is in there too. So where would you put him? Me, I would probably put him in the top 15 greatest Eagles that has ever played. By the way, I wrote down my top 10 Eagles in the Super Bowl era. So that's from like 1966, 67 until today. Here are my top 10 Philadelphia Eagles. And once again, I think it's pretty cool that Deshaun Jackson wants to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. I do. I think that's pretty cool. I love that. Mike Quick is more my style, by the way. Yeah, Quick had a great career. Mike Quick had a great career in Philadelphia. And you know, if I were going to compare him to anybody, he was probably like a Marvin Harrison kind of guy. Or like, I'm trying to think, who was the wide receiver in Washington all those years? He was kind of like that. What was that guy's name that was the wide receiver for the Redskins back in the day for Joe Theismann and those guys? He was kind of like that kind of guy, you know, put up really great numbers. Was it going to be a big mouth kind of guy? Art Monk. That's exactly when I think of Mike Quick, I think of Art Monk. Is that fair? I think of Art Monk. I think Art Monk was a great football player. And I do. I think he was a centerpiece in that passing attack that the Redskins had. And when I see Mike Quick, I see Art Monk. That's kind of the guy that I see. Really a great football player. Before we get into our topics, here are my top 10 Eagles. And thank you, Deshaun Jackson, for giving me the ability to do this. This is in the Super Bowl era now. So I'm not going Jurgensen. I'm not even going concrete. Okay? I'm going in the Super Bowl era. Okay? Number 10. I got Seth Joyner. In the Super Bowl era, I think Seth Joyner is your most complete linebacker you've ever had. Have you had a linebacker better than Seth Joyner? That is a more complete guy. Could cover tight ends, blitz, hit, tackle, and leader. Have you had a better linebacker than Seth Joyner? You may have had a better hitter. That would be debatable. Have you ever had a better guy who could cover? Have you ever had a guy who was a better run fit guy? Once again, Greasy, well, that is the Super Bowl era, but I think Seth's better than Bergie. Bergie's best years, in my opinion, were in Cincinnati. Not that he wasn't a great player on that Super Bowl team in 80, but in my opinion, I think Bergie's best years were in Cincinnati with the Bengals. So I got Seth Joyner number 10. And for the record, no disrespect to Bill Bergie because he's one of the greatest Philadelphia Eagles of all time. No disrespect. Number 9. You ready? Jason Peters, offensive tackle. I think this guy, as great as Lane is and as good as Jordan Mailata looks, Jason Peters, man, this dude, when his eligibility's there, remember something for me. And by the way, we got 2 Hall of Fame voters on. I'm going to bring some of these names up to them. We got 2 Hall of Fame reporters on today. And Deshaun Jackson, I'll ask them what they think of him. And I'll say this, and again, we're doing this all in the Super Bowl era here. I think Jason Peters, when everything's said and done, you know that I'm on the panel. I put all the names together for all these guys to debate. I think Jason, dude, as much as John Runyon was a great ball player, I think Jason Peters is the better of the players. He's just a superstar ball player. The guy's a great football player. I mean, there's no debating him going into the Hall of Fame. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Number 8, Big Sills. Greatest Eagles in the Super Bowl era. I get Jason Kelce. I'm trying to think in the Super Bowl era who have been the greatest centers. Webster, Kevin Mawai. I guess Otto. Look how few of these guys are. Look how few. This is where I'm going here with Kelce. Look at how few Hall of Fame centers you can think of in the Super Bowl era. Otto, Mawai, Webster. Kelce. There are not a lot of dudes at that position. Mike Pouncey's is a good player. And I like Mike. I know Mike well. Kelce's better. Kelce's better than Pouncey. Pouncey will probably get to the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day. He'll probably get there. Pouncey will probably get there. Okay? Mike Pouncey will probably get there. Even his brother, Marquise Pouncey, was pretty good with the Dolphins. Kelce's great, though. Kelce's one of the greatest players at his position in the last 55 years. That's incredible. He's number 8 for me. Now we're getting closer to the top 5. So far, my top Eagles, because Deshaun Jackson wants to retire Philadelphia Eagle. In the Super Bowl era, I got Seth Joyner 10, Jason Peters 9, and Jason Kelce 8. Number 7, I got Donovan McNabb. 99 to 2009 quarterback. I think Donovan McNabb, if everything is, even though that I have question marks about him as a player, I would say this to you. Donovan McNabb is a borderline Hall of Fame player. Borderline. His pettiness stopped him, in my opinion, from crossing the tape. He was too petty. He really didn't know how to control his emotions like Jalen Hurts does. Donovan McNabb is a skilled athlete and a skilled quarterback. but he wasn't very skilled socially in how to deal with the media. But when you watch Jalen and then you think of Donovan, they're two different people. And that's why I think you're getting the best of both worlds when you're looking at Jalen Hurts compared to a guy like McNabb. McNabb is a very skilled player, tremendously skilled, but I thought his pettiness stopped him from being even greater than what he could have been. This guy should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He might be one day. He might be, because you would look at him and go like this. Sills, who would you take in a football game, Phillip Rivers or him? I'm probably taking Rivers. But I actually think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame player. Okay? I actually think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame football player. Number 6, I got Randall Cunningham, 85-95. I think Randall Cunningham was ahead of his time. He was Patrick Mahomes in an era where Patrick Mahomes was not accepted. You got to remember something about Randall Cunningham. Had one of the worst offensive lines in pro football. Had some good skilled people around him. You had management that wasn't supporting him when it came to putting players around him. And yet, he won ball games and did a lot of it on his own. Randall Cunningham in today's NFL, that's the prototypical type of quarterback that you want to have on your football team. It's Randall Cunningham. You want to have Randall Cunningham on your team. You want Randall Cunningham as your quarterback. If you told me, Sills, of all the quarterbacks that you've seen in the last 25 years, what quarterback was ahead of his time? He's one of them. Marino, too. He's one of them. He's ahead of his time, man. Randall Cunningham could do everything. Let me just put it to you this way. If you put Randall Cunningham on that offense that you have in Philadelphia right now, he would never lose a ball game. He would throw for 7,000 yards. He would run for 1,500 yards. He basically would be a better version of Lamar Jackson because he's more gifted. And you know what? You don't have to hire a punter. He was an All-American at Vegas as a punter. He could theoretically punt for you. That's how great an athlete he was. No doubt about it, Manchester. That guy, you talk about dual threat superstar, Randall Cunningham was ahead of his time. Now, again, you talk about another guy who's socially inept when it comes to doing shit off the field. Another guy, a lot of things stopped him from being accepted. And let me just say this to you, too. If those two men had better relationships with the media, those guys would probably be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, both of them. But they didn't. They alienated everybody, including their teammates. They were not the best teammates. Okay, so the end, I mean, I've heard, and by the way, this is not a rip that I'm just coming up with some epiphany here with McNabb. He's admitted it. So is Randall. The relationship with Donovan McNabb and Randall Cunningham today is 10 times better than it ever was when they were playing and they were active. Number 5, here we are now. We're into 5 now. Top 5 Big Sills greatest Eagles. Again, I'm happy to hear Deshaun wants to retire a Philadelphia Eagle. I got Eric Allen here. 1988 to 1994. Cornerback. Maybe one of the most overlooked players when it comes to people who deserve to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What a great football player. And for the record, come on, man. Come on, man. Leroy Butler. I get some of these guys play different positions, but Leroy Butler, and you debate. Here, my problem with that whole thing was you debated that guy, Leroy Butler, got him in. And Eric Allen, you haven't debated, and you don't look at his numbers and what he brought to the team? Man, I don't know how you don't have that debate. And he is on my list. And by the way, one of the reasons that guys, just so you know, one of the reasons, why do you think we put on Hall of Fame voters here for you guys? Why do you think Jason Cole is on every week? So you can remind Jason to have a conversation about Eric Allen every year. Do you understand that? What, you think I just put that guy on just to put him on? I don't have to put anybody on. I don't have to have a guest. By the way, Bruce Arians will jump on with us next week, along with Keith Jones and Seth Joyner. We got a big week lined up. You think I put Jason Cole on just to put him on? I put him on for you. Don't have any notion that I just put that guy on to put him on. I put him on for you. Jason's one of the top voters at the Hall of Fame. You can remind him. And Howard Balzer next hour. Eric Allen. You do how many times those guys all say to me that they read the columns and they see Eric Allen? Do you know that Jason Cole now says this to me? Sills, make sure you get a lot of paperwork up on. And so does Jared Bell on Eric Allen this year. I'm doing that to get him in for you. So when you guys are ripping him, I might not go down that lane. He's going to vote for your guy. There's Fat Jason. I'm like, Jesus, please. I'm trying to work the room here for you guys. You guys are insulting a guy who could put your guy in. I mean, let's use some common sense, folks. I mean, right to a tone. I think they think that I'm putting him on just because I have to put him on, or I could put anybody I want on. I don't care. I put him on because I want him to vote for Eric Allen this year. Bruce goes, but they don't. Well, there's 50 writers, Bruce. And you get 5 guys convincing these other guys they'll go along with. Because, Bruce, think of this. How the hell did Leroy Butler get in? How did Fred Dean get in? How did Jason Taylor get in? Because you had people petitioning for him. Dude, I'm trying to get this guy in. Don't question me. I'm trying to help you. All right. So I got Eric Allen 5. Dwight Stevenson, way to go, Greasy. He's a tremendous football player. At number 4, I got Brian Westbrook. 2002, 2009 running back. Has there been a better running back than Brian Westbrook on your team when it comes to versatility, throwing the ball to him, running the ball in between the tackles? I think he's your best offensive running weapon. And I know Shady was a great ball player too, but man, if I had to pick between, and I did, I'd pick Brian Westbrook all day long. He was a 2.0 version of Marshall Faulk. Could catch the ball, and he was great in blitz pickup. Go back and watch some of the blitz pickups for Brian Westbrook. Man, was he phenomenal. There wasn't anything that he wasn't great, and there wasn't anything he wasn't a top-flight skill set player. Man, was he great. What a great football player. Brian Westbrook, man, catch it, block, run it. What a great ball player. Now we're getting into the top 3. I got Lane Johnson, present, right tackle. Man, look at that. You got 3 in the Big Sills top 10 offensive linemen. You got Peters, Kelsey, and now Lane Johnson. Lane is as good. Lane is as good as Ron Yeri ever was, or Forrest Gregg. He's going to go down in that conversation as a right tackle with Forrest Gregg and with Ron Yeri. Dude, no Shady. No, I picked Westbrook. As good as I think Shady was. I think Shady's a top 15 guy. I would say Shady's a top 15 dude. But I got Lane number 3. Here are my top 2 Eagles in the Super Bowl era. Ed Reed's the greatest safety in the history of the National Football League. Greatest safety. Troy Polamalu, Ronnie Lott, Kenny Easley, Jack Tatum, them dudes. But Brian Dawkins, okay, if I had to pick a second guy, would I pick Troy Polamalu or would I pick Brian Dawkins? I'd probably pick Brian Dawkins, okay, over Polamalu. Just nothing. And he was there's certain dudes you do this. Guys with tone setters. I think maybe force setters. Yeah, I think Dawkins is better than Atwater. I think he's better than Atwater. I think he's better than Atwater. I think he's better than Palomalu. And I think, by the way, no disrespect, I personally think that those two men that you mentioned, Troy Palomalu, and Steve Atwater, were tremendous football players. Great tone setters. I think the safety position. See, that's one of the issues that do you know? Can I? This goes. Man, I never thought about this. You know why you guys didn't like the style of defense? Why do you think you didn't like the style of defense of Jonathan Gannon? Why do you think you didn't like it? You know why? You didn't have an ass-kicking Andre Waters, Wes Hopkins, Brian Dawkins at the safety position that set the tone. You didn't have people back there knocking snot bubbles out of people, making those people do, you know what I'm talking, man, doing the Frankenstein on the ground. You didn't have anybody back there doing that. As good as those 70 sacks looked, you guys loved that. But the one thing that you did have, man, with them other defenses, you had people that came up and crippled people. They crippled people. Dude, Andre Waters crippled guys. Brian Dawkins crippled people. They'd hit you and go, come on, boy. Taste that, boy. Go back and watch Ed Reed when he hits people, man. Them guys were tone setters, man. Dude, and every single football team that had a great defense, Doug Plank on that 46. Everybody had tone setters in them defenses. Brian Dawkins is a tone setter. Could cover, hit, cover. Was not afraid of covering tight ends. Beat people's asses. See, the Eagle defense didn't have that kind of guy back there. They had get this. You know what's funny? That's the only thing the Eagle defense didn't have last year. Was an ass kicker. In Super Bowl 52, Malcolm Jenkins set the tone by knocking out Brandon Cooks in the first quarter with a huge hit. The Eagles never looked back. God damn, do I love that. You know, you go back to your huddle when you got a guy like that that's sitting back. I had Benny Blades in my huddle. And when he's knocking Tim Brown out, we're playing Notre Dame, and he knocked Tim Brown out. We get back to the huddle, Jerome and Stubbs, and we just start laughing. And Benny looks at us and he goes, "Why are you laughing?" I go, "This bitch is over. They're not coming back from that. We beat them 57-3. They weren't coming back from that. We beat Notre Dame after that hit 57-3. Knocked him out." I just started laughing. Benny looked at me and goes, "What's so funny?" I go, "That team is defeated in the first 4 minutes of this game. You knocked that guy out. He never came back. Benny knocked that guy out, man." I just started going, this thing's over, man. They have no shot to beat us. No shot. You imagine beating Notre Dame by 51 points? We beat them by 51 points. Because this guy knocked Tim Brown out. I was like, holy shit. Oh, no. Oh. I'm so happy we got Hall of Fame voters on now. Wow. Whew. Jim Brown passed away. Let me finish up. Reggie White. How appropriate. 85-92. Let me finish this here. My greatest Eagles. Seth Joyner, 10. Jason Peters, 9. Kelsey, 8. McNabb, 7. Cunningham, 6. Super Bowl era. Eric Allen, 5. Brian Westbrook, 4. Lane Johnson, 3. Brian Dawkins, 2. And Reggie White, 1. Jim Brown I had the pleasure. I'll show you this, guys. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm, mm. Let me do this. I want to do this for you before we continue here. I had great conversations with this man numerous times, and I did a lot of stuff with Jim with the America I Can program he had. I would say to you that Jim Brown, in pro football history, his place, Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Jerry Rice, Brady, it's those guys. It's Jim Brown, Reggie, Lawrence Taylor, Jerry Rice, Tom Brady. Then it's the rest of them. It's the rest. Do you know why it's the rest of them? Because when you tune and turn their game film on, they look like they don't belong. You watch game film on Jim Brown and you're watching him playing against the NFL during his era, and you're like, he doesn't belong. He just doesn't belong. When you watch Lawrence Taylor, they just don't belong. They look like they're in a different speed. When you watch Reggie throwing guys around, or you watch Lawrence Taylor pass rushing, or you watch Jerry Rice catch a football, they were just different. Different. Very complex man. Retired at the age of 28. In his 9 years playing in the National Football League, led the National Football League in rushing. Look at this. 8 times. 3-time most valuable player. 5 yards a carry on a football team that really had nothing else. It was just Jim Brown. Carried the entire Brown organization on his back. Syracuse, he got jobbed out of winning the Heisman Trophy because he was black. They gave it to some stiff, I think from Oregon. Maybe Oregon State it was. He should have won the Heisman, but he was black and he was considered a militant. You know why he was a militant? Because he believed in rights. You know, he walked on at Syracuse at first because they didn't know if they wanted to have black players on the Syracuse campus at the time. Truly one of their greatest activists. Supported Muhammad Ali. I mean, you got to remember something about guys like him and Russell and Kareem and Muhammad Ali. Those guys actually did stand up for civil rights. Those were actual people. They weren't these paper-made Colin Kaepernicks. These people were this. Jim Brown was this dude. He embodied it on the field and he embodied it in his life. A lot of controversy in that man. But when you talk about him playing in the National Football League and where his place is in history, it's cemented as one of those dudes. Like if you were to put a Mount Rushmore, who would be your Mount Rushmore if you were to put a Mount Rushmore of NFL players? Jim Brown's on it. I think you got to put Tom Brady on it. Jim Brown, Tom Brady, Jerry Rice. And I think you could debate either Lawrence Taylor or Reggie. But I think you'd have to put Reggie. Or I think you'd have to put Lawrence Taylor up there. So if I'm going to do my Mount Rushmore of pro football greatness, Jim Brown. I'd have Brown, Rice, LT, and Brady. Those are your four. Got to put Brady's got to be there. Brady, Brown, Rice, and Lawrence Taylor. With Reggie knocking on the door. Those are your five greatest football players, and those are your four Mount Rushmore guys. Nobody embodied the game like Jim Brown. My uncle, this guy right here. And those legendary New York Giant games played against Jim Brown. Played against them guys forever. And I said to him, I go, what was it like playing against Jim Brown? He goes, it was like a whistle on a train when he ran through the line of scrimmage. Sam Huff would say when he ran into you, he would just fold you like a chair if you weren't in proper position. Andy said that those games at Yankee Stadium and Brown was playing in them games was like a freight train. You just heard whistles. And by the way, you see this? This is Robustelli's New York Giant Ring of Honor jersey. Handed to me. It's an heirloom. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he's in the New York Giant Hall of Fame. Said that playing against, I can't believe we got two Hall of Fame voters who know Jim Brown are on today. Brown was one of the early Black Pride activists. Harry Belafonte, Ali, all those guys. And hey, what a legend. Whew. Dude, getting on the phone and I had Jim Brown on my show. My wife used to produce, and Jim would come on the program. Actually came into my studio. And the reason he came on was because of Robustelli and my relationship with Robustelli. And he would come in and sit down and talk to me and just say, hey, you know, no one could stop me. How great do you think Ernie Davis would have been if he wasn't taken away so early? My God, Ernie Davis and Jim Brown in the same backfield with the Cleveland Browns would have been unbelievable. Would have unbelievably brought another championship to the Cleveland Browns. Ernie Davis was a special football player. Special football player. Jim Brown, for sure, man. Wow. How about those iconic games with the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day at Franklin Field? Dude, that shit gives me goosebumps. I'm sorry, I'm a big historian on that stuff. Shit, man. Yeah, I mean, those games must have been insane. All those great Hall of Fame players playing against one another. No rules. Just playing ball against each other. Concrete playing against Jim Brown. Robustelli, Huff. Cat Cabbage. I'm mentioning names you guys probably don't know. 9 seasons. Imagine if that guy played longer. Shit, he led the NFL in rushing 8 of those 9 years. 3 MVP awards. Won a world championship for the Browns. Charlie goes, I saw games at Franklin Field. Gale Sayers was the most exclusive back in history, probably. There's only 2 backs, Ray, that I would put in the same conversation as one another that were so electric like that. OJ and Gale. And maybe Barry. Maybe Barry, too. Did OJ go to Syracuse? No, Juice went to Southern Cal. Dan, you realize Syracuse had Brown Davis, Floyd Little, and Larry Zonka consecutively. Absolutely. Floyd Little's a Connecticut guy from New Haven, and we talked about this Also, Moose Johnson played there too, if I'm not mistaken. And so did Jamie Morse. He played there too, one of the giant backs from back in the day. They had great backs that were back in that time. Absolutely. And even some of the Hall of Fame running backs, they did a great job of recruiting the Northeast. It was Penn State. It was Penn State and Syracuse and to some extent Boston College during my time when they were recruiting. But they weren't really gigantic. The only true power in the Northeast was Penn State and Syracuse. And then Penn State and Joe Pa started taking over because they just started out recruiting Syracuse. Notre Dame, too, is in that section of the country. They got a lot of guys in that section, too. So, look, man, Chuck Bednarik versus Jim Brown. Poof, Jesus criminy. Hey, you better wear two mouthpieces. You better wear two mouthpieces. Eric Dickerson's the best running back GG I've ever played against. And he's a friend. He's a friend. Barry used to say, give me an inch. Actually, Greg, that was stolen from Gale Sayers. Because Sayers' line back in the 60s was, all I need is an inch of daylight. Give me 1 inch of daylight. That was Sayers' line. 1 inch of daylight. There's a John Facenda NFL films on that 1 day of daylight. He goes, all I need is 1 inch of daylight. You think Adrian Peterson's up with? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Jim Brown would be a success today. With these shitty defenses that they have in the NFL, Jim Brown would. Do you understand he ran a 9-100? This guy was an All-American lacrosse player. Do you know he's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame? And he's also in the College Football and Pro Football Hall of Fames. Jim Brown was a Hall of Fame lacrosse player. He ran a 9-100. This guy was incredible. 9-100 at 240 pounds at 6'3". You don't think that would play out today? And especially playing against some of these shitty defenses? Jim Brown had 2,000 yards rushing today. You couldn't stop that guy. See, the defenses back in the day, you know why those defenses were better? Not better athletes, but you know why they were better technically? They were able to keep the players on their field longer. You didn't have a salary cap. Players, if you were drafted one place, you stayed in one place. Over 12,000 yards in 9 seasons. Yeah, what do you think? and let's not forget something. They played 12 games. They played 12 games for like half of his career. Hey, Tone, remember that. He played 12 games, then it went to 14. 9 seasons, 1,200 plus yards, 25 receiving, 106 TDs in 9 years. Absolutely. They played 12 games for a boatload of his years. Then they went 14. Jim Brown never played in a 16-game schedule. They never. I think the most yards he ever had was like 1,900 or 18 something. Like 1885 or maybe it was 1,900 yards. He had something like that, and he did that in 14 games. I think he did that. Okay? I think he did that. Yeah. All the Hall of Fame guys want me to get stuff together for him because they're going to start doing stuff. 160 yards a game. No. He's the only man, Neil, in pro football history to average 100 yards a game. That's the stat. Nobody in their careers have averaged 100 yards a game. He's the only man that has averaged 100 yards a game for every game he played. I can't wait to talk to our Hall of Famers today. Fly Eagle Fly. Jim Brown was a super dude, super duper athlete with a beast mentality. I remember those 12-game seasons. Bo Jackson, another one of those elite guys. Absolutely. Let's dedicate the show today. Sills, absolutely. Today's athletes are bigger and stronger, faster in all sports. Absolutely. But not, I would say this to you, Yale. Everything you just said is true. But do you know why they're not more technically sound? Offensive linemen that come into the NFL today, you need Jeff Stoutland because you don't have 4 years of coaching. You don't practice like you used to practice in the day. Shit, you don't even practice in the NFL like that anymore. It takes you longer to develop a great skill set to play offensive line or any position in the NFL because the NFLPA and the NFL they don't have the same practice standards. You don't have preseason games. You don't have 3 months of training camp. You don't have any of that stuff to teach technique. The technique that these guys get today, you have to go over and above to have yourself prepared to play in today's NFL. Because most of the kids that come out of college today are exactly what Yale said. No, Yale, I'm not debating that. I'm not saying that today it's not safe for today. It is. But you're not technically more sound just because the fact you don't practice it. How could you be more technically sound today when you have 2 hours of practice a week and you don't practice in full gear and you don't hit and you don't scrimmage and you don't do any of that? How could you be more skilled? You're not more skilled. You're a better athlete. You're bigger. You're faster and you're stronger. That's all true. But don't under any pretense believe Reggie White couldn't play in today's NFL. What do you think Reggie White would do to that kid you just drafted from the Eagles? What do you think he would do to that kid? That kid would look like one of those little balls in a slingshot. Reggie would kill that kid. There'd be a no moss. Do you actually think those guys in New York could actually block Lawrence Taylor with the limited skill that they have at preparing to play offensive tackle? Lawrence Taylor would kill quarterbacks. He would be completely illegal in today's NFL because he couldn't hit the quarterbacks the way he did back then. He just couldn't do it. And he would be doing it often. He'd be like that Burfict kid. They would be suspending him every week for the hits on the quarterback. You think they're going to allow him to come around the corner and hit people like that? Jim Brown would run everyone over. 9'1", 100, 6'3", 240 yards. And you think that the defenses could stop him? Again, you're right, Yale. They're bigger, they're better, they're faster, but they're not more skilled. They're not more skilled. But they would make up for it because of their athleticism. Like when you watch Micah Parsons today, and you see guys like Chase Young, Hassan Reddick, Nolan Smith, you see guys like that, you look at it and go, man, that guy could play in a 3 technique. He could play in a 5 or a 7. You could put him in a 34, 43. You couldn't do that shit back in the day. You couldn't. You guys weren't big enough. And the offensive linemen were gargantuan back then. Now they got great skill. I mean, Lane Johnson today, 6'5", 6'6", 330 pounds, 320. Look here, Jordan Mailata is even better example of what Yale's saying. Yeah, here's a guy 6'9", 350 pounds, and he looks like he's 260. And he could probably run an under 5 flat 40. He's got immense feet. A guy like that would play defensive tackle back in the 70s and 80s. That's how good he was. Earl Campbell's probably the closest to Jim Brown. The only difference was, and Earl Campbell had great speed on him. The only difference was that Brown had Olympic speed. Hope there's a football heaven. Jeremiah, well, I'll tell you what. If there's a football heaven and you don't have Jim Brown in it, then you shouldn't have a football heaven. Because that guy is one of the angels that belongs in the football heaven. I'm not saying he was a perfect human, because there's a lot of shit in his life story. But when you talk football-wise, if that guy's not in your football heaven, there ain't a football heaven. Okay? Or is it? Whew. How funny we started off with Deshaun Jackson wanted to retire a an Eagle, and we get the news that Jim Brown has passed. Best backs in NFL history. Brown, if I had to have one game where I needed a running back to carry me to a championship, it'd be Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, OJ. If I had to give you the 5 greatest NFL running backs, man, I can't wait to get our Hall of Famers on. 5 greatest NFL running backs. Wow. Brown, Peyton, Emmitt, who would be the other 2? OJ. I saw OJ on Monday Night Football go for 270 yards versus the Steel Curtain, and there was nobody on that team. And he just ran through them on Monday night. I was a little kid. I never had my jaw open more than watching one man kill a great defense led by Mean Joe Green. Man, Barry wasn't better than Emmitt. No, he wasn't. He was more electric. But it's not true. Emmitt didn't have minus yard plays. Barry had a ton of them. Okay? Jim Brown was a great actor too, man. Absolutely. Actually, if you think about it, Jim Brown was really, him and the guy who played Shaft were probably your first really great black actors. Dirty Dozen. Jim Brown, I grew up when Jim Brown was, when I grew up as a kid, Jim Brown was like one of the very few black actors I remember. And when he was in a movie with Raquel Welch or something, whatever, I remember watching him. Brown, Peyton, Emmitt, OJ. Who would be the 5th best back in pro football history? You had to win a game. I know. Listen, hard to put OJ in there. OJ's a great back. I don't care about the shit off the field. TJ Hooker too, man. Yeah. Hey. I mean, O.J. Simpson was a tremendous football player. Dickerson? Who would we put at 5? Jim Brown, Walter Payton. Man, I told you. Hey, man, Walter Payton's final game. Gale Sayers didn't play long enough. But hey, though, Ray, check this out. Dude, I told you my crazy situation, man. Friday, I'm getting ready to play against the Florida Gators. That Sunday, I line up against the 87 Bears. 2 years removed from the 85 team. I can't. Hey, Aunt Betty, I'm sorry. I know you're not feeling good. But I tell you what, this was my first professional game. John Madden and Pat Summerall are calling the game from Tampa Stadium. I don't even have the plays. I barely have elbow pads. I don't know anything. I don't even have a playbook. And I'm standing on the sidelines. It's my first professional game against the Bears. It was a big – I went in a supplemental draft, me and Chris Carter. Carter went to the Eagles. He played with the Eagles that Sunday. And Bosworth went to the Seahawks. And they used the 57th pick on the next year's. Anyway, so I'm lining up, and I go like, I swear on my God, I went just like this. Holy shit, there's Walter Payton. And everybody on the Bears and everyone on my team started laughing because I went, holy shit, there's Walter Payton. Guys, you had to be there to hear this. All of a sudden, the huddle breaks. I walk to the line of scrimmage, and I see Walter Payton, and I go, holy shit, it's Walter Payton. Dude, the referee, everyone, they stopped the play, and everyone's laughing. I went, holy shit, it's Walter Payton. Yeah. And Peyton, after the game, he signed an autograph. I got an autograph from him, man. I wanted to get an autograph from Walter Payton, so I got an autograph from him, man. And I just couldn't help myself. Holy shit, it's Walter Payton. I'll think about that fifth one. By the way, we're going to do a lot of Jim Brown conversations today, but I want to show you how hard it is for the Eagles to get back to the Super Bowl. Also, we haven't even got into our topics. Bottom of the hour, one of the Hall of Fame voters that knows Jim Brown or knew Jim Brown, who passed away today, Howard Balzer, will join us at the bottom of the hour. He covers the Arizona Cardinals. I want to know what kind of impact Jonathan Gannon is having on that team. We'll get his thoughts on what Jim Brown brought to the NFL and his place in NFL history. So he'll join us. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Still, National Football Show. Appreciate you guys coming aboard. Still struggling a little bit in who I'd put in that fifth hole. Obviously, the news of the day today, Jim Brown has passed away. Our Hall of Fame voters will be on with us today. Howard Balzer will join us at the bottom of the hour. He writes for GoPhoenix.com now, covers the Arizona Cardinals, Hall of Fame voter, then Jason Cole, obviously, too. And how appropriate to get those two men on today in the passing of one of pro football's greatest and one of the Mount Rushmore guys in Jim Brown. Probably if I had to put a fifth guy there, probably going to be Eric Dickerson. It's too much. I mean, I'm biased because I played against him. I'd probably put Dickerson in that fifth hole there. If I had to pick 5 greatest backs in pro football history, Brown, Peyton, Emmett, OJ, and probably Eric Dickerson. Those would be my 5 guys. Earl Campbell's right there. Tremendous football player. Tyler Rose was great, but we'll talk more, obviously, about it. I want to ask you guys a question here. How many people believe that the Philadelphia – we'll continue more of our conversation on Jim Brown. But how many people believe that the Eagles are going back to the Super Bowl? How many people believe they're going back? Absolutely, Dank. How many people believe that this football team, you guys believe that the Eagles have a chance to go back? Well, in the Super Bowl era, there's only been 3 teams that have lost the Super Bowl and came back and went to the Super Bowl the following year and won it. Cowboys 71, lost it. Came back in 72 and won it. The Dolphins, 72, lost to those Cowboys, came back in 73 and won it. The Patriots in 18 lost it, came back in 19 and won it. In 56 Super Bowls, there's been 3 teams that have lost the Super Bowl and came back to win it. Why are you in the same conversation that you think that this Eagle team can do what those 3 teams were able to do when others failed? Other greater teams than your team. I would say this, that Philadelphia Eagle team that you have assembled right now currently, that's not a all-time team. That's not an all-time team. Because your defense. Well, then again, you know what, though? To be fair, I don't think you can build an all-time team today. Right? It's different. You're not going to build an all-time team. Like we were just talking about Jim Brown and all these guys. You were able to keep players like Jim Brown and guys like that on your football team for 10 years. You were drafted there. You stayed there, right? You can't build 85 Bear teams or the Buccaneer team. You can't build those guys. I don't think you can build those teams any longer. I don't think you can build a transcendent team and have you just can't do that. So you want to hear something? Yale, everyone else, I think it's harder today to go back, even if you win, even if you have a good team, even if you're the Chiefs. I think it's harder today to win multiple championships in the NFL than any other sport. Dude, baseball keeps your ass. You know why? Guaranteed contracts. I'm telling you, the reason why it's hard for teams to repeat in the NFL, they cut you. They cut you. And players have more freedom today in the NFL. There's 2 things. The team can cut you, and you can move around more. In baseball, you got guaranteed deals. Look at the position that the 76ers are in with Joel Embiid. Dude, you know why you can't move Joel Embiid? You don't have draft capital. You really don't have a lot of things. You really are kind of pinned here for the next 2 years with the guy. I mean, you don't really have a lot of draft assets. So you got to kind of hang with the guy. Not that that's a horrible thing, but to be able to get him pieces and bring things that you, because of the guaranteed contracts, right? Only 3 teams, and look at that. 2019 is the last time that a team lost the Super Bowl, came back to win it. I think this is going to be a tough road for the Eagles this year. I think it's going to be a tough road. Tough road for them to get back there. Look, here's what we would say. Are they as deep? I don't think so. Are they as experienced? Clearly not, especially on defense. And I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get there because guess what? They're playing tougher teams, better quarterbacks, better coaches. It's just a tougher dynamic. That's why you see a lot of teams going, man, Philly may only win 10 games. I'm not one of those people. I think they're going to actually play well. I do. I think Philadelphia is going to have a good season. By the way, I've ranked the NFL's best offenses as of May 19th. We've done that. And also, don't forget, bottom of the hour, Howard Balzer, one of our Pro Football Hall of Fame voters. He covers the Arizona Cardinals, and we want to get his take on the passing of Jim Brown. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. Keith Jones will be on with us next week. I talked to Keith yesterday, and because he was on Sports Take, I didn't want to do him back-to-back, so we got him and Seth Joyner next week, and we got Bruce Arians next week as well, so we're pretty packed next week already out of the gate, plus with Gary Cobb on Monday. So here's the first topic. If you were right now in team meetings and you're going through OTAs, by the way, I think the Eagles do a great job of covering their team with their Twitter page because you get a lot of intel and a lot of content. Absolutely, you get a ton of it. Okay. Hey, do me a favor, Tone. See if a superstar Billy Graham died. Dank's saying that he died. And I'm not saying you're lying, Dank. Let me know, Dank. Let me know, Tone, if superstar Billy Graham died. Jesus, what a terrible day. Come on, no, man. No way. No, I don't even want to click this. Jesus criminy. Hey, Seth Joyner just liked the post that we did when I said Seth Joyner was the 10th best Eagle in the Super Bowl era. Tone, that's to you and your boys. Yeah. We'll also talk to Howard Balzer. One real quick story on superstar Billy Graham, and I'll get to my topic. So most of you, or some of you may not know, but I wrestled in Europe. And I won what was that called? The CWA Junior Heavyweight Championship. I held it for 12 days. Otto Wantz had it, Big Otto. And I was ranked, I think, in the top 10. And Ken Patera and Vader and all these guys. And I was ranked 10th in Europe. So I thought that was a big deal. 10th ranked wrestler in Europe. I was good with that, right? And so they would bring Road Warrior, Hawk, and Animal over. And I knew these men very well. No. Hey, Callie, the WWC owned it, not WWF. You guys remember WCW? WCW owned CWA Wrestling in Europe with Otto's group. It was called Catch Wrestling. It was a big, and then after I went from Catch Wrestling, I went to Antonio Inoki and New Japan, and I wrestled at the Tokyo Dome. Craziest. 85. I walk out, there's 85,000 fans at the Tokyo Dome. I'm like, and Vader's with me because Vader played football with the Rams. He goes, don't worry about it. I'm like, what are you, crazy? I'm in my underwear in front of 75,000 fans. What are you, psycho? He started laughing. He goes, don't worry about it. Craziest thing, yeah. Dude, you walk out in your underwear in front of, I was like this. I felt like a runway model. I'm like a runway model, man. But anyway, I'm over in Europe and I'm hanging out with Road Warrior Hawk. We're sitting around, and who comes in but my idol, superstar Billy Graham. Bone Crusher. That's it, Callie. You got the name, Bone Crusher. Hey, a superstar walks in. I'm like, holy shit. I love Ken Patera and superstar Billy Graham. My grandfather loved wrestling. We watched it all the time. It was old WWF. Anyway, so he comes walking in. Superstar was just so freaking cool. Dude, guns like this. This guy was so juiced up. I was like in marvel of the guy. He come walking in. He's 6'5". How you doing, brother? What's your name, young man? I go, Dan Sileo. He goes, oh, you're the football player. I remember you playing football, Miami, right? You know who Larry Fole is? I go, I do. He's Lex Luger. That's another one of them Hurricane boys. How you doing, son? I was like, yeah. Dude, man, he was a total riot. He'd sit down and take you out. Go, come on, let's go out and get something to eat. Superstar, get all these chicks around him, and he was just a really fun guy. And hey, I remember telling my aunt's watching, she's gonna laugh. So hey, yeah, we traveled to Vienna. I get on the phone and I call my aunt and I go like this, Tone, listen to this. Well, I'm supposed to wrestle in Vienna, right across the street at the Opera House. And I go to my aunt, I go, I think I got off the train wrong. I'm in Wien. She's like, knucklehead, Wien is Vienna. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I spent a whole summer in Vienna wrestling with Superstar and Road Warrior Hawk. Dude, crazy. Hey, I've lived the craziest life you've ever lived in your entire life. Oh, dude, all them guys were over there. Then, hey, when Andre the Giant walked in, I'm kidding you. I'm not kidding you. You know, this is Jerome's cup. I'm just going to use this as an example. But say this is a normal cup. This is how Andre's hands looked with the cup. That's how Andre's hands. You shake your hand. Dude, I got a pretty big hand. When Andre shook your hand, you didn't have a hand. That dude was enormous. Dude, that guy was... Dude, and Andre's the sweetest guy on the planet, man. And when you worked with him, man, he never hurt you. He was just a good man. Okay, what a dude. WCW was great. Alexander, the guy who hired me was Cowboy Bob Orton. Cowboy Bob Orton was the guy, and I forget the guy who was the manager for. He was one of the guys that was with the Four Horsemen, and he was the guy that trained us at the Powerhouse. Oh, it was a fun time, man. Just a fun time. What was your wrestling name, Sills? Bone Crusher. The Bone Crusher. The Bone Crusher. I couldn't do the bikinis, dude. I wasn't Randy Orton. I forget it. Cowboy Bob Orton. Yes, that's Randy Orton's father. Yes. He ran WCW for Ted Turner. Yep. Oh, I know who it was. Ole Anderson then started training me. I was trained by Ole Anderson. Yeah. I know. Crazy? Yeah, I saw Steve. We've been talking about Jim Brown. Ole Anderson trained me. After Cowboy Bob hired me, Ole, then he started training me down at the Powerhouse. And also too, Undertaker. Who was the guy that wore the Warrior? What was his name? I had him, I had Undertaker, and I had, who was the Ultimate Warrior? The Ultimate Warrior, him and me were being trained by Ole Anderson down at the Powerhouse. I went to New Japan, then I went to CW, then I went back to New Japan because Tony Onoki wanted me to go back. So we did that for a while. Right. Then, hey, how I got out of wrestling is even crazier of a story. My grandfather one day goes, "You're not really going to do this for the rest of your life, are you?" I'll go, "Grandpa, I'm making $15,000 a week." My grandfather goes, "You got a college degree. You're really going to do this?" So I quit. And I went into broadcasting. Probably saved my life because there's a ton of drug use. And those guys are all broken up. Either that or committed suicide. And none of those guys are in good shape. Cactus Jack, who I talk to a lot, he's in horrific shape. Dude, he walks with a cane. Yeah, dude, he walks with a cane. He is not in good shape. And he took some of the biggest bumps in the history of wrestling. And Cactus Jack, man, whew, dude, this guy's got scars. There's not a part on his body that doesn't have a scar or has been broken. Not broken, I should say. He is just, dude, when that guy jumped off the top of the octagon or off the top of Bret Hart's brother died that way. And get this, how many times Cactus Jack did the same thing that Bret Hart's brother did that died in Kansas City? I was supposed to go to Kansas City the next week and wrestle after Bret Hart's brother died. Yeah, everything got stopped. And yeah, Mick Foley, man, dude, Mick Foley is arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. There's no doubting about it. He didn't give a shit about anything. Man, he didn't give a shit about anything, and he didn't care about anything. And they paid him huge money. I met my Uncle Richard took me to my first wrestling match, and I saw Bruno Sammartino wrestle with my cousin Kevin at Madison Square Garden. That was like my first big time deal being involved watching wrestling. My cousin Kevin and my Uncle Richard took me down to Madison Square Garden. We watched Bruno Sammartino. I think who he wrestled, the good guy. Not Bockwinkel. Who was the other guy? That Bob Backlund. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Bruno Sammartino lost the championship belt to Bob Backlund. And then Backlund had it for like ever. And then finally Vince, after the father died, said that ain't working anymore. That's when they created Hogan. Yeah, man. Bob Backlund was a good man. He was actually a really good wrestler too, amateur wrestler. Dude, bro, has Matt Gentleman. Hey, Junkyard Dog was a good, but dude, most of these guys are good people. One last thing. Bruno was a good guy too. Dude, one last thing on the Road Warriors. These guys sucked. Dude, if you look on go to my Twitter page. Animal, his wife still has animals. That's Laurinaitis, the kid who played for the Rams. Played at Ohio State. I think he writes now for WWE. You know the Laurinaitis kid that played linebacker in the NFL, won a title with the Rams? That's Laurinaitis' kid from the Road Warriors. And that's his kid. So I was very partial to naming him to like All-American teams back in the day because his dad would call me and go, "Hey, my kid's a great." He goes, I got it. So, hey, maybe one of the only times, man, I was jaded because I really liked the kid. And he was good. I think Laurinaitis, if I'm not mistaken, I think he played with the Rams and maybe the Patriots. he was a good football player. Now he's a writer with WWE. These guys suck. So Ole Anderson goes like this. Same thing they did with Vader. Vader was bombing. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these two guys, Road Warrior Hawk. Hawk's name is like Mike Harrigan or something like that. And so they had nowhere. They were gonna get fired and everything. And Ole goes like this. Let's just drop a pair of shoulder pads on him. And you know why they dropped a pair of shoulder pads on him? Check it out. You know why those colors were red and black? Because WCW was based in Atlanta. They dropped a pair of Georgia Bulldog shoulder pads on him. Just threw them on him. And they were bombing. All of a sudden, they put the spikes on it. Whole gimmick was made. How Vader's gimmick was made. He was dying in America. He goes to New Japan. Disney had this character that they were trying to create, and so they couldn't create it. So Antonio Inoki grabbed the helmet, put it on Vader, and that was the rest. The helmet became Vader. It just shows you the gimmick and the prop. They make the guy. Yeah. And then how many people remember those Zubas? Do you remember Zubas? The pants Zubas? Road Warriors found that company. They sold it to Starter. Then the NFL bought it. Those guys made more money off that deal than any wrestling deal they ever had. When they sold those sweats to Starter. They started that company with those really weird colors. I had a whole bunch of them. They sent me a shitload of them. Cincinnati Bengals, Michigan Wolverines, Miami Hurricane colors. Shit, I still have some of them in boxes that I've never opened. And Starter came to them and said, hey, we'd like to buy those things. And so both Mike and Jim go, okay, no problem. So they sold those Zubas to Starter, and I think they got a deal from them for it was back in the mid 80s. I think they got a deal for like $40 million. I'm not kidding. And they came up with the concept of the Zubas. They still do some of the stuff now. I think they're still out there. And some of those things. I don't think Starter's still around, though. All right. Hey, my friend is going to join us here probably in a couple minutes here. Just double check because it's pretty big news today that Jim Brown has passed. So, yeah, Howard Balzer, we have him set up here for 4:30, so he should be coming up here in a couple minutes. And I want to get his take on the passing of Jim Brown. As I said, one of the truly iconic football players. And I was just starting to get into the topic, but I had to tell you that story there. They made a lot of money. They made Dallas. Dallas has been on the show. We've had Dallas. Diamond Dallas has been on the National Football Show. We had him on, I think, a year ago. I think Dallas Page. I think we had him on a year ago. We put him on. Yeah. Because I don't want to get into the topic here just yet here, because I got two topics that I think, as we're getting ready for training camp, that I'd like to see them really figure out who they're going to put in there. But boy, I'll tell you something. All that being said here, and before I bring my friend Howard Balzer in, I want to put this jersey up. And I want to remind you guys one more time. Here's my uncle here who played against Jim Brown, Robustelli. And can you imagine those great Chuck Bednarik, Robustelli, and Sam Huff games with Jim Brown? And I asked my uncle years ago, what was it like playing against Jim Brown? He said, you could have swore you heard a whistle like on a train when he ran through the line of scrimmage. It was like a whistle. And before I want to set this up with Howard here, because I said that there's 5 players in NFL history where you turn the tape on and you go, that's not normal. LT, Jerry Rice, Jim Brown, Tom Brady would be your Mount Rushmore guys. Okay, those are you just watch Lawrence Taylor. You went, that's not normal. Let's bring in Hall of Fame voter, and by the way, now writes for phnx.com, phoenix.com, and we're going to get his thoughts also on the Cardinals. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Howard on a day like this. Wow. I mean, Howard, of all the players that are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is there any more revered player than this guy who passed away today, the great Jim Brown?
Probably not. I mean, there might be many that are close to being as revered as him, but you mentioned Mount Rushmore. You can make the argument, hey, there should only be one on Mount Rushmore. And you can make the argument for Jim Brown. And it's when I just heard it, obviously just a short time ago, and you're going, man, one right after the other, but what a life. 87 years old. He just turned in February. And, he was still making trips to Canton in recent summers as best as he could to get around. And it's just, what can you say? I mean, it's hard to put into words. I will say this, that, and you were talking about Andy Robustelli and the defensive players then, back then when he was playing, I mean, most of the defensive linemen were about the same size as him.
Right. Right.
And so, I'm not trying to diminish what he accomplished, obviously, but he was a man among boys, and he was just so big and so strong, and what an athlete. I remember a story about him. He played lacrosse at Syracuse. He ran track. And I remember hearing a story, I don't know which year it was that he was in college. And it was springtime, and he was playing lacrosse. He was a member of the lacrosse team. And something happened on it might have been a relay or something like that with the Syracuse track team. And they were playing the same day as the lacrosse team right around the same time. And so someone said, hey, Jim, we need some help. Can you help us in this track meet? He said, hey, I got a lacrosse game. I have a lacrosse game. Well, what he ended up doing was the lacrosse game ended. He went over to the track, and then he ran, I think it was a relay. He ran the relay and helped his team win. So, the guy was just not human in a lot of ways. And then you throw in, all the things that he did post-career with how much he meant in the community in Los Angeles and what he tried to do for young people. Just a great man. I mean, that's really the best way to describe it.
Howard, outside the quarterback position, I mean, like I was saying, when I used to tune on those old VCRs and you watched Lawrence Taylor, or you can watch Reggie picking up people and slingshotting them, or Jerry Rice running through the tunnels, and there's just certain guys that you just go, that's different than the rest of those guys. No disrespect to Earl Campbell, Eric Dickerson, Emmett, none of those guys. But when you talk about position players, is he the greatest position player, not quarterback, named here in pro football history, would you say?
Well, you can make the case for it. And I've always been one to make blanket statements about this guy's the best, that guy's the best. And you mentioned Earl Campbell, and I always often, when the conversation turns to this, I often think back to when Earl Campbell came to the Oilers in 1978, and Bum Phillips was the head coach. And he was like Jim Brown, a man among boys. There's certain guys, it wouldn't matter the era, it wouldn't matter the team they played with and what was around them, they would be great. I mean, you could perhaps make the case that with Jerry Rice, if he had gone to a different team, that maybe he wouldn't have been the same Jerry Rice we saw, but not guys like that. And I'll always remember, though, back to the point I was going to make, that one day Bum Phillips was asked about it. And I don't know if the question was, is Earl Campbell the greatest running back in the history of the game? Is the greatest you've ever coached, the greatest you've ever seen? Whatever the question was, Bum thought for a moment, and then in his classic Texas drawl said, well, I don't know if he's the best, but he's among them. And that's really almost all you can say. But, to say that there was anybody better than Jim Brown, certainly even at running back, but just generally, I mean, heck, when you're talking about so many different positions, there's so much great. As you mentioned, Lawrence Taylor, he'd been great wherever he played. Reggie White would have been great wherever he played, whoever the coach was, whatever the system, any of those things. And I don't know that there's that many. There's certainly a lot, but there a lot of guys aren't. You can't say that about. You certainly could, obviously, for Jim Brown.
I'm going to make a pitch at the end of our interview here for Eric Allen again. I'm going to do that here in a second, but I want to get to the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm not going to pollute my question, and I'm not going to be a politician here or a lawyer here and give you a leading question. But I do want to ask you about Jonathan Gannon, your takeaway so far and what you've thought of him being around him.
It's early. I mean, I think the guy he has certain things, the certain mannerisms, the certain little buzzwords that he says. And I'll say this, he does a very good job, I think, of saying very little but making it sound good. All right? Now, we've been trying to pin him down on what's the defense going to be, and he wouldn't say anything. And so, but, generally from talking to him, and not only in press conferences, but, a couple of times, one-on-one, I think the guy's a good guy. I think he has a way he wants to do things. Obviously, it's way early in the process. He doesn't. I'll say one thing, Dan. He doesn't have a whole lot to work with right now, but he is sure trying to make it look better than it is. Talking about that. Hey, someone asked him at one of the press conferences. I think it might have been. I don't know if it was post-draft or the week after, whenever it was, doesn't matter. But someone asked him about the rebuild. And he was together with Monty Ossenfort when they were having this press conference. And they used the word rebuild, and Monty answered it. Or I'm sorry, yeah, but then before he could answer it, John, hold it. You just made me cringe with that word. And he didn't say what word it was, but it was the word rebuild. He said, our goal is to win football games. Well, of course, you have to say that as a head coach. But he doesn't have a whole lot to work with right now. They're hopeful, obviously, that a lot of young guys and a lot of bargain basement free agents that they've signed are going to come in and compete hard and play hard and give him a chance to win who knows how many games. But he's up against it in this first year, obviously, as a head coach with talent, with personnel. You don't know when Kyler Murray's going to be available to play. The DeAndre Hopkins situation remains in limbo, and it's but I think I think you have to give it time. But I think like I said, he has a certain way that he wants to do things. I know there's a lot of pushback against him in Philadelphia, but hey, in Philadelphia they push back against just about everybody.
The only problem, Howard, that I have with him is exactly what you said. I mean, I just like my coach to be direct. Not everything is supposed to be put out there on a silver platter where everything's supposed to look good. Everyone knows the Cardinals are in a rebuild. And when you say you're not, you kind of are like a bullshitter a little bit. And it comes up. And by the way, like you said, coaches don't have to win press conferences. Nick Sirianni's was not the best. It was weird as it could get. Even Belichick's press conference in New England was horrific. So it doesn't really put an indictment on him. But again, to me, that's been my issue. And again, maybe, they want to try to put as much goodwill on Arizona right now as possible because of some of the things that have been going on in Park Avenue. So I get all that too. Howard, I mean, they want a good look right now to sell to the fans. Is that okay?
No, yeah. And I think that's fair. And I think also, but you're selling the players too. You're trying to sell players on this is the way it's going to be. This is the way we want things. We're trying to put something together here. Obviously, they're building, rebuilding. I mean, that's, everyone has their own, definition of it. But you certainly don't want to be, saying one thing. You can certainly say some things different behind closed doors to players. But you just can't be coming out and saying, hey, we're in a rebuild here. We know we're not going to win many games or whatever it might be. And then you turn around in the locker room, and the players are looking at you going, come on. I mean, hey, we're going to try to win games. And obviously they will. Doesn't mean that they will, obviously. But I think it's a coach's way. I mean, we know that coaches BS us all the time.
I do.
And I mean, that's just the reality of it. And you have to cut through it all and then, report on it yourself the way that you believe it should be reported. And that's, pretty much, what I've done. I mean, they say, oh, we're so excited by free agency. I mean, boy, I wrote it. I mean, I wrote that it was like they were shopping at the dollar store. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go out and spend crazy 5-year, 6-year contracts on guys, but they didn't sign any player in free agency, Dan, that got more than a 2-year contract. And it was interesting, too, because I added up the numbers. They signed, I believe, it's 21 guys in free agency. That includes guys they re-signed who were unrestricted free agents. And the signing bonuses totaled what a guy they lost, one of their best defensive players, Zach Allen, who went to Denver as a free agent. Zach Allen got a $15 million signing bonus, and that's about what the Cardinals spent total on 21 free agents. And the guaranteed money was $5 million less than what Zach Allen got. So obviously that was their plan. Just, sign a whole bunch of hungry guys to 1-year deals that know they're going to be free agents again next year, and hope that some of them, come through and play good football and see if they can steal a few games. But it's a tough schedule, tough division, obviously. And I mean, heck, the numbers say it all. I mean, I saw a story this week that they're underdogs in every game in advanced betting lines, which what does that mean in May? But the other thing is their over-under in wins is 4.5. It's the lowest of any team in the NFL. They have the longest odds to win the Super Bowl, which isn't a surprise. And I just finished putting together another edition of Lindy's Pro Football Magazine, which I've done now for 31 issues. And I don't know how it's going to fall as I'm going through all the stories, and we have rating points for every position on a team. And then you add up the points and you come up with a total. And I don't know how it's going to end up at the end, but the Cardinals were by far the lowest number of points, total points, position by position, of any team in the NFL. So that's all out there, and that's reality. And we'll see. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're trying to sell at least hope, and at least that they will be a team that will play, will improve and get better as the season goes on. But when you have a quarterback that's not going to be available, who knows, until maybe halfway through the season, and an offensive line that you don't even have a clue right now who one of your guards or your center is going to be, and you don't have any real veterans at those spots, there's a lot of question marks, obviously.
Buda Baker, will he be on the Cardinals in September?
I think, and I think he will be. I'm you see all this about the contract, and I know it was reported on nationally that Monty Ossenfort in his first year as general manager doesn't want to start a precedent of giving a guy a new contract when he has 2 years remaining on it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what are you worrying about setting a precedent for? There's nobody else on this roster who would have the cojones to walk into his office or his agent to call him and say, hey, we want a new contract with 2 years left. There's nobody else that fits that bill. But Buda Baker is the epitome of what you would want on your roster in terms of ability, in terms of passion for the game, in terms of a guy who just hates to lose. We saw that on Hard Knocks last year. It would seem to me that if the money is the issue, then just figure it out. I mean, he's not making that much less than some of the safeties that are making more than him. 2 years left on the deal. None of it's guaranteed. Give him a signing bonus, add a couple of years to it, and send a message to the locker room that we will take care of you when it's your turn. I think that's what they should do. Maybe they will in time. The one interesting thing about it is, Dan, I check every few days with the NFLPA website. And since this whole story broke, which is I guess we're almost a month ago now. Yeah. Almost a month. And when I checked back when it started, a few days after everything, broke with the whole story and the whole bit, he was listed as not having an agent. So that tells me he changed agents, right? Well, I just checked this week and they still don't list an agent.
Huh.
And so you start wondering, well, if it's about a contract, you're not going to get anything done until you hire an agent. So that's one of the little murky things about this that you wonder about. Because Ossenfort said at the draft, he said, we're having ongoing conversations. I'm talking to his agent. I thought of saying, well, hold it. The NFLPA, who are you talking to? The NFLPA doesn't list them as having. Wow. So unless who knows, maybe he's being Lamar Jackson is going to negotiate on it by himself. I don't know.
June 1's around the corner. Will DeAndre Hopkins be cut, traded, or do they restructure something? This one here, Budda Baker, it's a safety, and Howard, no one's going to put a Jamal Adams kind of deal together anymore. No one's going to put $20 million out there for a safety, I don't think. But for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, if you look at the numbers and you extrapolate them out, dude, this guy would have had 119 catches. He'd have had about 1,400 yards again if he doesn't get hurt. He's still, in my opinion, one of the best third down receivers in the game. You're a brand new head coach. Isn't that something the organization would try to maybe come to some sort of understanding and try to keep that guy on your team? Why would you want to move him?
No, it's a great question. And the one thing that we don't have a lot of clarity on is certainly the belief is that he wanted to go somewhere else, or he wants to go somewhere else. And as as a guy who's going to be 31 in a few weeks in early June, and even though he did have pretty good numbers last year after he came back from a suspension, he did have an injury. He did have a hamstring injury a little bit later in the season. He had that the year before, and the knee injury, making a lot of money. But so that's the one uncertain part of this is, does he badly want out and doesn't even want to talk about coming back with the Cardinals, even on a restructured contract, which, like Baker, would be pretty simple to do. Their situations are somewhat similar, even though Hopkins is older, but he has 2 years left, both no guarantees in it, and his salaries are a little bit higher than Baker's. But if you're going to have any shred of hope in terms of even when Kyler Murray comes back, then I don't see how you're going to do it without DeAndre Hopkins on the roster. So certainly after June 1st, it becomes they save more on the cap, but they don't have any cap issues right now for this year. Even with his cap hit right now, that's close to $30 million. They're about $16 million under the cap. And so they don't need to save against it. Now, I will say this, that the more cap dollars you have available at the end of this year, they roll in and add to what you have the following year. But it's not like they have to do something for cap reasons. And again, it comes down to another team, is that how much market is there? As good as he can be, he will be 31. He's had some injuries, and we don't totally know what he wants in terms of the contract. And this is a guy, Dan, when he signed the contract he's in now, negotiated it himself right after the Cardinals traded for him in 2020. But then this offseason, he hired an agent. And I assume because of, obviously you hire an agent because you want him to take care of whatever it's going to be, whether it's with the Cardinals or a new team. But obviously the market wasn't there for him in terms of a trade, because he would have been traded already if there was. And so, but we also know that trades are very dependent on contracts. And that's one of the reasons the Cardinals, I mean, here in Arizona, people were going, oh, the Cardinals shouldn't let him go unless they get a number one. Well, they didn't get a number one for him. And that was 3 years ago. And the reason they weren't able to, or they didn't have to, and the Texans weren't able to get more, was because everybody knew that Hopkins wanted a new contract. And the Cardinals knew it, and they gave it to him. So there's all these tentacles to this story that makes it hard to predict what will happen. I mean, it would be shocking to me if they just cut him, unless that's totally what he wants and he refuses to play for the Cardinals. And obviously if they cut him, then the whole contract goes away and he has to negotiate from scratch. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out in the next couple of months before training camp.
The folks in Philly probably have an interest in this one. Where is Zach Ertz's place on this roster? I mean, I saw some reports a couple days ago where there's a potential he could be a guy that's cut loose after June 1st, and then they go in a different direction with him, and he goes somewhere else too. Does he have a place in this offense? And again, I think it's really hard, Howard, to put and predict anything right now because of the status of Kyler Murray, and I get that. Because what are you going to even open up the season with in September here? You've got to have some viable points to be able to move the sticks. And he's probably maybe the lesser and the cheaper of the two between him and Hopkins. But where's his place on this roster?
I would think there's a place for him, but again, I don't know. We don't read the minds of the hierarchy. There's no. I mean, he signed a 3-year contract. I'd have to look at it to see what the benefit is to have waited until after June 1st, when you can split some of the signing bonus over 2 years. It's not going to save them, all that much to do that, and it does push cap to next year if you do that. And so, but to me, there is a place for him on the roster. And it's granted, we don't know when he's going to be available to play. Everyone talks about Kyler Murray, but he tore his ACL also, even though it was a few weeks before Murray. And he's hoping to be ready for week 1, but obviously there's no guarantee that is going to happen. And so, again, it comes down. I mean, but here's another guy who, even if you accept that it's a rebuild, you still, to me, want leaders in your locker room. I mean, hey, here's a situation where they drafted Paris Johnson Jr. in the first round. They have DJ Humphries as the left tackle. He's making a ton of money, but of course he just signed a restructured deal last summer. So I think there would be some real cap ramifications to that if they moved on. But to me, you can't be preaching character and leadership and things like that are so important to your roster, and then start getting rid of your leaders. I mean, that to me doesn't make sense. But then again, some of the things they've done have kind of raised an eyebrow. I mean, I talked about free agency, and everyone thought that with all the quarterbacks available, the Jacoby Brissetts and the Gardner Minshews and, different guys like that, Marcus Mariota, whoever you can list, that the Cardinals would have signed another, more of a veteran presence.
Would they be interested in Carson Wentz?
I don't know. That one surprised me a little bit, only because he's just, it seems he's burned too many bridges. Maybe burning bridges is not the right way to put it, but there's just too many questions, about him right now. But who knows? Maybe that would be the case. There's some questions about Colt McCoy, who hasn't participated in off-season work. At the mini camp they had before the draft, he wasn't even throwing the ball. But hey, you're going to open the season most likely with him as your starter, and who's his backup? Is it David Blough? Is it the rookie Clayton Tune?
Wow.
So, and the only thing they did in free agency was re-sign Blough and sign Jeff Driscoll. That was the veteran free agent that they signed. So they've done a bunch of things that kind of raise your eyebrows. But to me, when you have a guy like Ertz who loves it here, loves Arizona, is great in the community and all those things, and I know it's business. I know it's all about, those things, but I don't know that that's a good message to send your team if you start moving on from even more guys than you already have.
I'll tell you what, Howard, I might want to cover Arizona State football. I don't know. Hey, 2 last questions here for you. Deshaun Jackson is going to, and obviously everyone knows Howard's a Hall of Fame voter. Deshaun Jackson, the first player in NFL history to be named to the Pro Bowl as a special teams and also as a wide receiver. 700 receptions, 1,200. One of the greatest deep threats in the history of the game. Too far outside the room for someone like that to be considered? I mean, do you think Torrey Holt's – you covered Torrey Holt. You think Torrey Holt's a better player than Deshaun Jackson?
Well, he wasn't as much of a deep threat certainly, but he could go deep. And he was certainly a lot more consistent over time and put up the numbers. And I think there's other guys that I would say, the guys that are there now as finalists that haven't gone in for a couple of years.
Reggie Wayne.
You got Jimmy Smith, on the outside, who hasn't, been a finalist at this point. And there's just so many receivers that, to me, as great a deep threat as he was, the overall consistency just wasn't there. But he was a fun player to watch. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I do think he just falls a notch below a lot of some of these other guys that we've been talking about.
I completely agree, but I'm going to make this last pitch here for Eric Allen here. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Did you put Leroy Butler in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I have to admit, I'll have to think back. I don't remember what I did in the reduction votes. Certainly when it got to the final five and he was a finalist, I voted yes, which most of us do when it gets to that point.
So it's a bigger deal for you on the 15 to get to the 5.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Interesting. Why is that? As a guy who helps like Jared Bell and Jason Cole's on in the next hour, I'm on a bunch of these panels that, these guys ask me to reduce it from 15 for them. It's an opinion. They ask a bunch of guys, as you know. And so, I give them my opinion on some of these guys and put some intel together for a bunch of you guys. I didn't realize that the 15 is the tougher one once you're down to the 5.
Yeah, to go from 15 to 10 to 5, it's first of all, it's excruciating, and sometimes weird things happen in there. Like for last year, for example, I really believe one of the wide receivers was going to get in, and all 3 of them made the cut to 10, and there were, interestingly, Dan, 2 edge rushers that made it to the 10, and one of them, Dwight Freeney, did not make it to the 10. So I thought, 3 wide receivers, one of them is going to get in, and none of them did, and one of the edge rushers got in. And I've made the argument or the point that if it had been 2 wide receivers in the final 10 and 3 edge rushers, that one of the wide receivers might have had a better chance, because any split of the vote wouldn't be enough to keep one of them from getting to the top 5. And the one thing that I point out all the time, and I don't hear many say this, but the one thing we don't know is that, and remember, there's only 49 voters. There's going to be a 50th this year. When you go from 15 to 10, we don't know how many votes behind number 10 the 11th person was. It probably was pretty darn close. It might have been missing by a vote or 2. And the very same thing might happen when you go from 10 to 5. And so that is...
So some of these guys get caught up in the process.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that 100%. I believe that. And so with Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, and Reggie Wayne, there's a lot of discussion about, hey, we got to get one of these guys in. We got to get one of these guys in. Well, enough. Some people vote for Wayne's in the cut to 5. Some people vote for Holt. Some people vote for Johnson, and it splits the vote, and none of them get enough to get to the final 5. Whereas the pass rusher DeMarcus Ware made it to the 5, and Jared Allen did not. And so, I think that's a part of it. And that's why. So when I became a selector, which is now around 20 years ago, one of the first years I did it, there was, it doesn't matter who it was. I think there was one guy, maybe 2, I don't remember, but there were some guys that I did not vote to get to the 5 that were in the 5. And so I said, well, hold it. If I didn't think they should go from 10 to 5, why should I vote yes for them? And so I voted no. Well, then one year we had Michael, the last time this happened, I think was 2006. That's a lot of years ago now, where Michael Irvin made it to the final 5 and didn't get enough votes to be enshrined. And what happened? He came back the next year, and now we're talking about him again. And now he gets to the final 5 again. And so I think what everyone in the room realized, we might. It's kind of like the whole wisdom of the crowd type of philosophy. That if there's enough people that vote no, and it keeps somebody out, It's not going to keep them out forever. They're going to come back. And what does that do? Not only do you have to consider him again the next year, but it keeps somebody else from getting into the top 15 and being discussed.
Howard, so then do you look, say a guy who's the first ballot, a third ballot. Shit, Joe DiMaggio was the third ballot, 10th ballot, 11th ballot. To you, it's not really, it's like Brady when he says, it doesn't matter where you're drafted. It just doesn't matter as long as you're drafted. You take the opportunity. Do you look at a guy who's in the 10th year or somebody like an Eric Allen who's on the outside waiting in the process, and I look at Rondé Barber, and there's a lot of people, and I go, Rondé Barber, Eric Allen, I don't know. I get the title. I see that all decade. I got it. I'm totally, there's a great debate there. But do you look at any difference in a guy who goes in his second year versus a guy that goes in his 8th year? Do you care about that? Does that matter to you? Or is that more about the player being butthurt over something like that? Do you not care about that?
No, I do care. And I do think that at times, I think we're in a little too much of a rush sometimes to put in first-time eligible guys. Now, obviously, there's some guys that are just obvious. They're slam dunks. They're
Junior Seau. You're not going to argue that much.
Exactly. But Brian Urlacher went in the same year as Ray Lewis. Jason Taylor went in as a first-time eligible. And again, I'm not saying he's not. Now, some would say, well, if he's a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer going as a first time. Well, there's other guys that have been in that final 15 that have been waiting. And I think that at some point you have to go, you mentioned Torrey Holt. Torrey Holt, assuming he's a finalist, well, this next year will be his 10th year of eligibility. Wow. He's already halfway through the process.
I can't believe that.
Of his modern day eligibility. And you talk about the process. Here's a perfect example. I think it was 2014 or 2015, whichever year it was. Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Kurt Warner, and Orlando Pace, all from those great Rams teams, were first-time eligibles the same time. Well, the first year, Orlando Pace and Kurt Warner made it to the top 15. In my mind, Orlando Pace should have gone in as a first-time eligible.
Oh, absolutely.
Jonathan Ogden did.
Absolutely.
Walter
He's
Jones
in that
did,
conversation. Absolutely.
But Pace did not. And so what did that do? It pushed him up to the next year when Warner and Pace were finalists, were one of the 15.
I didn't realize Orlando Pace was in the first ballot because
then Pace went in the next year.
Crazy.
Then Isaac Bruce took a step into the 15 when Pace exited, and then Warner got in the next year. Took a couple of years for Bruce to get in, and in the year that I was actually a little surprised that Holt became a finalist the same year that Isaac Bruce was. I thought it was going to take Isaac to go out of it. But the point is, it delayed Torrey Holt from being a finalist because of the other guys on his own team. And so those are all the things that play a part in the process. And you wonder why. You talked about Leroy Butler. He wasn't even a semifinalist for like the first 10 or 12, maybe even longer time in his career.
That dude and Fred Dean, to me.
Same with Sam Mills.
Hey, Fred Dean and him, I was like, okay. I mean, I respect you guys a lot. You're caretakers, but I just was like, wow. Fred
and you
Dean.
mentioned Eric Allen, and I 100% I believe he's deserving. Albert Lewis, who
yes,
I would say
agreed.
Should have been in before Rondé Barber. Maybe should be in before Eric Allen. He was a finalist this year for the first time in his career.
Look how long Ken Riley took.
Yeah, and he had to wait till he's a senior. Now Albert Lewis, this was his final year of eligibility, so he goes into the seniors now. So who knows how long it takes for him? And you just scratch your head and say, well, how could he have not at least been a finalist a lot earlier in his career? And so, a lot of times it's, out of sight, out of mind. You're not eligible.
You guys have a headache of a job. Let's just say it and leave it there with that. Howard, I love catching up with you. I'll make sure I tell Jason you said hi.
Definitely.
On a day like this, when we lose one of the truly NFL legends, you guys are the caretakers of the Gold Jackets and those 300 men that are in that building in Ohio. And I'm glad that my uncle's one of those guys too, by the way. So I'm kind of tied into that place myself. Thank you so much, Howard. God bless you, my friend. I appreciate you coming aboard. Thank you.
Take care. Always enjoy it.
You got it. Howard Balzer, make sure you check him out again. Go over to his website and make sure you check him out at gophnx.com. He writes there and he covers the Arizona Cardinals, a Hall of Fame voter. Appreciate him doing that all the time for us. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Weather forecasting is a team game.
Every day, updating the models and passing along new critical information.
We have a team of 5 experienced meteorologists and a specialized weather producer, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Sometimes what I see in the model, Cecily could see something different.
That's when we come together as a team to make our most accurate prediction.
And all of this backed by more than 100 AccuWeather scientists. It's a team game.
And we have the best team in town.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Right zone. Power Hour number 3 here on a Friday. We appreciate all coming aboard. Thank you very much. By the way, I've ranked the top 10 offenses in the National Football League. Want to get your take on it. Also, we've had so much news today because of the passing of Jim Brown. And a really great conversation with Howard Balzer. By the way, tell me that you didn't have the same impression. Tone, maybe you also maybe took the same thing away. It seems that Jonathan Gannon's bullshitting people out in Arizona to me. Just sounds like he's bullshitting them too. He's making things sound like they're not. And, I mean, when you live in denial like that, players buy into that. And they look at you and they go, dude, just the only thing that a player wants you to do, look, you don't have to go out in public and tell people everything sucks. You don't have to do that. But you also, and I'm not saying that your press conference is going to dictate what kind of success you're going to have as a NFL head coach, because we see numerous coaches blow up at press conferences, especially some of the really great coaches that have been in front of a microphone before. We've seen them all not have great. Bill Belichick's the best example of that. The greatest coach, according to some, in the history of the league, didn't have a really great press conference when he was introduced as the new head coach for the Patriots. Okay, all that. Like I said, Sirianni too. But at the end of the day, when somebody asks you a direct question and you can't answer it directly, I think you come off shady. I think you just come off shady. Jonathan Gannon comes off like a shady dude to me. He just comes off shady. You can't answer. I hate people who can't answer direct questions. Is this your fault? Nah, you're not really. It's the scheme. It's the grass. It's kind of some of the shit that happened in the game. Hey, we didn't have the. Remember, here's probably my biggest problem with that guy. And to tell me that I'm not wrong when I said this from day one with this guy, even when the team was 2-5 and he was the defensive coordinator. Do you guys not remember me saying this to you? So Jonathan Gannon's first year, and one of the reasons why he said that the defense wasn't a really good defense was because they didn't have the personnel. Okay. Well, why didn't you scheme it up then? Well, we just didn't have the people. And people in Philly bought it because it was a top 10 defense. Because you were playing lesser teams. See, this is the cover here that you guys are now going to get this. Sean Desai has no chance of success this year. And people are going to go like this. Well, maybe Gannon was better than we thought. No, you're playing better teams today. Here, I'll make a point to you. Jonathan Gannon's defense of a year ago, who finished second in the NFL, if Sean Desai gets that group that he has this year to finish in the top 15, he'll be lucky. With all the new faces and all the inexperience that he has on that side of the ball, it is going to be a super challenge. Lost your 5 tacklers. Wasn't considered a really good tackling team anyway. I'm not saying he can't do it and make it even better. But to sit here and say that's going to be the second-ranked team versus people like Davis Mills, sure. Versus Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers and shit like that, you're not having success. You never had it when you played against those guys in the first place. Gannon's going to come off looking even better, even though his team's going to suck out loud this year. He just comes off like a bullshit artist to me. Gannon is the guy you see in a trench coat and fedora smoking a cigarette in the alley. Yeah. He's a double agent. He's a spy. He's one of them guys. I just don't trust. How about this? Maybe it comes down to just this. I just don't trust that guy. Shit, man, you even have players that are coming out and putting out codes now that are saying, and hey, and for the record, here's the same guy. So here, this is even more of an indictment on Jonathan Gannon. So Jonathan Gannon, you have a guy who covers the Cardinals, who doesn't really like how his approach is with the media and people when you know for a fact you're not going to be good and you're not going to win more than 5 games. And you're out there bullshitting. And then you turn around and remember, this is the same guy that was cutting deals. I got guys on my own network that were trying to make an excuse for this guy, saying that he wasn't cutting deals behind the Eagles' back to become the head coach of the team. Well, Howard Balzer just came on and goes, this guy doesn't answer direct questions. I don't know, Tone. That was my takeaway. That this guy, and I even said it to him, this guy doesn't have takeaway. This guy doesn't answer direct questions. He just doesn't answer direct questions. What do you need to see from Sean Desai's defense that would expose how bad Gannon's Eagles defense was? That Sean Desai helps the Eagles win 12 ball games this year. If that Eagle team wins 12 ball games and Sean Desai is defensive coordinator of the team, I think he's going to struggle. Not on him, though. You're playing really good quarterbacks. And the two positions that hey, what positions do quarterbacks attack? Most of you think they attack corners. They attack safeties and linebackers. That's what the NFL is today. They don't attack corners, safeties and linebackers. Why? Because it's in the middle of the field. Because why else? Defenseless wideout. You can't undress those guys coming across the middle anymore. Why wouldn't I go across the middle against the Eagles with lesser talent and challenge the strength of the team? If I'm an offensive coordinator playing against the Sean Desai or Philadelphia Eagles defense, why in the world would I go after your corners? That's the strength of your defense. I'm going to go after your linebackers and your safeties. Why? People don't run into fires in the NFL. Okay? Well, Sills, we got the best corners. So what? A tight end will kill that defense. A great tight end, a good tight end. Shit, I saw a Giant tight end last year have a good game against you guys. Second Giant game. Dude, a good tight end will kill that team. A great tight end will take you out, and you'll lose a game. You don't have people to cover these guys. You don't have the skill set to cover them. What do I? Sean Desai helps that team win 12 games at home field advantage, and they win the NFC. Guy should be the coordinator of the year. With all the new faces and experience they have on that side of the ball this year, and the total inexperience in the D tackle position. Okay. Look at the Saints' first drive did against Gannon. Absolutely. And there was a tight end on that team I'd never heard of. Okay? There's a tight end on that team I never heard of with New Orleans. So if I'm attacking the Philadelphia Eagle defense, I'm attacking your linebackers. Here, I'm running the ball. I'm going to try running the ball on you. Because you guys were average last year, because that's going to set up my play action. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tight end to your linebackers. You don't have a linebacker on that football team right now that can cover a wide receiver, a tight end or a back out of the backfield. You have no one that can do that. That has to be an improvement after June 1. I think you're going to find a guy. He did a year ago. I think he's going to do it again. Hey, by the way, do I think Howie will find a guy? Yeah. I do think he will. I think he'll make a deal for one. If he doesn't find a guy after June 1, I think he'll find a guy. Dude, he scoured rosters last year. The guy that San Francisco had, he didn't pan out. What did he do? He goes to the Saints, finds a guy down. Dude, if you think about it, where was Gardner Johnson on that depth chart a year ago when it came to what the Saints thought of him, making $800,000? You know, he had to be one of the dudes on that roster that they thought they could live without, for them to just jettison him like that. And now he makes $8 million. Holy shit, that's a stroke of genius by Howie Roseman. You got a Pro Bowl year out of the guy. Guy led the NFL in interceptions. That's an incredible find. And again, it's not luck. That's a skill. Let me look at your roster. See, Howie's not looking at, most of you guys are looking at the Buda Bakers. And those dudes are up here at the top end of the roster. Howie looks down here. What do I got down here? It's affordable. It's doable. I don't have to give up a lot of assets. And are you underutilizing them? Remember something, the biggest rule that I told you guys about the NFL is what? If you pay them, you're playing them. This ain't college where you could just put a guy on the third team, put the next guy up. You got a cap. If you pay that guy, you're playing that guy. That's why sometimes you guys sit around going like this. Why in the world would someone play that guy? Because you're paying him. You pay him, you're playing him. Howie looks at the bottom end of those rosters. He's doing it right now. Now, the bottom end of those rosters aren't usually the guys that are whacked. The guys at the top end of the roster, they end up getting whacked. Why? Well, most of those guys want to go back to where the grass is green for them and not greener on the other side. Look at Darius Slay. Darius Slay wasn't even a free agent. Think about how Darius Slay handled his offseason. Darius Slay handled himself like he was an actual free agent. And he wasn't. He had another year under his contract. He could have did this shit all behind the scenes. But what did he want to do with Drew Rosenhaus? They wanted to get it out there that, hey, wait a minute here. Yeah, because once they saw Stephon Gilmore's deal and they saw what he got, they knew immediately he wasn't going to get anywhere near the money he's making right now. So they took a $4.5 million, $3.5 million pay cut, got money in the front end. And dude, get this, he got a better deal than Stephon Gilmore did. Got a better deal, making more annual money. He would never have made that money on the open market. Actually, in theory, if the Eagles had let him go, the Eagles could have probably re-signed him and brought him back for lesser money than he is making right now. But they don't want to gamble on that. I don't blame them. I don't blame them because they got Bradbury too, so they put the two guys back together. They paid for the convenience and the unsureness of having to deal with potentially him going somewhere else, being pissed off and signing somewhere, like the Jets or something. So it was the right move. Okay? And it worked out for the Eagles, and it actually worked out for the player. But, you know, part of the $3.5 million savings went to the $20 million as they got ready for the draft. The restructuring of Jordan Mailata and Lane's contracts, all those things got redone and moved around. Slay helped out on $3.5 million of it. It's all good. Dude, I'm not, there's no rip here. But guys at the top end of the rosters right now on June 1, those are going to be the guys that are going to get whacked. Dude, Darius Slay was going to get cut. They weren't going to pay him $18 million. They were not. He was going to get cut. Tell you what, they could say whatever they want. They were going to cut his ass. But he took a haircut. Basically, he signed a one-year deal because they can whack him next year because the cap hits nothing next year. See, for them, they'd rather give him money up front. Dude, this money up front thing that Howie does now, it takes a lot of stones and a lot of cannolis by Jeffrey Lurie to go like this. Hey, do you want to win games today, tomorrow, year after, the next 5 years? That's Howie's pitch. Because what Howie does now is he goes to Jason Kelce, gives him a contract, brings him back full money, 14-4. He goes to Lane Johnson and says this, let's restructure your contract. We'll give you a shitload of money next year. Drop that number down for us on your base. Here's a ton of money on a sign. That's what they did. They lowered his base so it lowers the cap hit. That's the key to what Howie has been doing here. But you have to have an owner. See, look, you just heard Howard Balzer say this. I don't get it. The Cardinals were shopping at the dollar store. They gave no money out. And they got cap hits everywhere. DeAndre Hopkins, Budda Baker. And it's really not in the base. It's in the fact that they don't want to restructure and give the players the money up front like Philly does. Philly believes in dudes. That's why you want to play in Philly now. Bro, if you're a football player in Philadelphia and you're making a lot of money and you got some years with you still, the Eagles are going to come to you and go like this. Tell you what we'll do. Let's get that salary down from $10 million to $5 million, and we'll give you $15 million on a signing bonus and spread it out and defer it out for you. Is that cool? Shit, yeah, why not? You're telling me you're going to give me $15 million guaranteed dollars next year? I lower my base. I was going to make 10 next year, but you're going to give me 15? Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do it? You know, look, D4 goes, Philly gets it. Whoa, no. They all get it. They all get it. D4, they all get it. They all know it, but they all don't want to do it. The key for the player, dude, if the quarterbacks are telling you the guaranteed money is the thing, position players also know this. So you're going to you want me to drop see, this is where Hopkins, if the Cardinals had any kind of brains or, wait a minute, balls They would go to DeAndre Hopkins and go, D-Hop, I'll tell you what we'll do. You got a $20 million cap hit and a whatever that thing is next year. It's over the top. Let's restructure. We'll give you more money up front. Let's lower that base salary down to 8. We save 10. We give you 10. And defer it out. Bidwills are cheap. They signed 20 players, $15 million in signing bonus money. And Zach Allen signs a contract with the Broncos, and his bonus was $15 million. Bidwills don't want to win. And that's why when Jonathan Gannon's walking around telling everybody everything is great in Arizona, you're a liar. Jonathan Gannon signed to become the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals for an organization that does not have the understanding of what it takes to win. It never has. They fall into luck, and they fall into winning. Dude, Kyler Murray may be a son of a bitch, but at the end of the day, that organization's horrible because they don't want to invest in success. The Eagles invest in success. And you know who they invest in success with? The players on the field. And they do it right, unlike Dallas. Dallas overpaid. Dallas has it right. But when you're looking at Zeke Elliott and you pay a running back $20 million against your cap, and then you go out and you pay $20 million for Amari Cooper. Hey, dudes, no disrespect to anybody, but when the Cowboys give Amari Cooper $20 million on a base salary, and then I turn around and I go, the Eagles give A.J. Brown $20 million, I don't know about you, but when I see Amari Cooper, I don't see $20 million. When I see A.J. Brown, I see $20 million. You throw the ball to that guy, dude, that guy is another DeAndre Hopkins kind of guy. You are not going to get him down with one hit. That guy's going to carry you a place. I mean, that's a football player, right? And what I love about A.J. Brown, you're in that run game and you're walking around out there in the middle of the field with your head on a swivel, he's going to knock you out. Don't be walking around out there when you got guys like DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown walking around out there. They'll decapitate you. You got a guy like Amari Cooper, he ain't going to do that to you, man. He's not looking for contact. That's why when I sign a guy, hey, who would I rather sign, A.J. Brown or Tyreek Hill? Am I the Eagles? Yeah, I want A.J. Brown. From the Dolphins, probably Tyreek. Because when I look at the Dolphin offense, that's not a physical offense. That's a finesse offense. A.J. Brown belongs in a physical offense like San Francisco. Like Deebo Samuel is a physical player. Like who? So Tyreek Hill had great numbers. Yeah, but Tyreek Hill, the Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl without that guy. They won it with Juju Smith-Schuster. Dude, Juju Smith-Schuster in Kansas City did more harm to what Tyreek Hill's reputation is in Kansas City than any player that has come out of that building since Andy Reid has been in Kansas City. They didn't need him. They didn't need him to win a Super Bowl. How crazy is that? Hey, Tyreek, great player. Tua's the best. He's the most accurate. I've never seen anything like it. And yet, the guy breaks records with Juju Smith-Schuster and like a bunch of apples in a barrel. You know, I mean, the Travis Kelce, of course. You're kidding me. By the way, Jason Cole, another Hall of Fame voter. We're going to talk about the passing of Jim Brown here in a second. Get his take on it, too. Some NFL news. We'll walk around the NFL with our friend. And again, one more time on why we get these guys on and why they're important to you. I saw some of you guys finally get it. Keep posting Eric Allen, HOF. I'm not putting these guys on for me. I'm putting these guys on to try to get one of your guys in the Hall of Fame. Maybe I wasn't clear on that. I thought I had said that a few times. You guys want Eric Allen. You hear me even make a pitch for D-Jax? Not that I think he's a Hall of Famer. He's not. Let me say this to you, though. You think Deshaun Jackson is an Eagle Hall of Famer? You think he gets a green jacket? Deshaun Jackson does? All right. We had Howard Balzer in the last hour, and we went around talking about the Cardinals a little bit to the Hall of Fame voter. We also started out, obviously, with the passing of Jim Brown, and I was proud to put this jersey out there. Can you imagine Andy Robustelli and the kind of things that he was saying to me about playing against Jim Brown with him and Sam Huff and Cat Cabbage and Rosie Greer, Dick Mogilewski, all those great players that played against Jim Brown. And before I bring Jason Cole in, Andy used to say, when Jim Brown ran through the line of scrimmage, you heard like a train whistle. It was just like a train whistle when he went through the line of scrimmage. And Jason also is a Hall of Fame voter. Do not forget his book. Please do me a favor. Amazon. It's a must read. And we bring in our Hall of Fame voter now. Boy, what a day, man. I mean, you talk about certain people. And Jace, I put these guys out there, and I said this. There's certain dudes that when you watch game film on, Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor, Tom Brady, those are kind of your Mount Rushmore guys. But is there anybody more respected in that Hall of Fame in Canton as a football player than Jim Brown?
Whew. No, because you're talking about an era, where it's tough guy football. The 50s, 60s are about as rough as the game gets. Probably maybe some of the 70s because of the defensive rules. Obviously, the 30s and 40s, it's just a different game. I mean, it's basically a scrum. But you're talking about after the, basically the invention of the T formation. This is run and run hard, and small rosters that have 40 guys or 37 guys. So it's not anything close to the same game in terms of the strategy or the strategy that's allowed. There was no keeping 5 receivers on a roster. That just didn't exist, right? So Jim Brown played in about as tough an era and dominated in about as tough an era as you could possibly imagine. And there's the only guys who are up there in terms of toughness and talent, would be guys like Butkus, and Lawrence Taylor. Who is the Eagles' great linebacker?
Chuck Bednarik.
Bednarik, Concrete Chuck is, there's a short list of guys who evoke that kind of respect when you talk about game ability.
When you're talking position players too, Jason, don't you agree that Brown, you could make the argument that Jim Brown's the greatest position player? And again, how I look at it, Jace, because obviously eras are different. I mean, he played 12 games the first half of his career, and he still was able to get 12,000 rushing yards in 9 seasons. And so there's a lot of factors, obviously. The players are bigger and faster today. Maybe not with the same technique, because players, when you went to a team, you stayed on the team. But, I mean, for one guy's era, would you not agree, all the guys that you vote for, would you not say that of all the players that dominated their respective decade, he dominated his decade more than any other player in the history of the NFL?
Well, Don Hudson, as a wide receiver in Green Bay, is right up there. And Jerry Rice, Jerry Rice's records are still so far out of reach from a career perspective.
But Jace, those guys were reliant on a quarterback and a throwing game. This guy was handed the ball.
I'm just saying, in terms of how far out of reach, for a position player, what they do. So Jim Brown is up there with we're talking rare air. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, we're mincing qualities among 2, 3, 4 guys. And Brown, you could easily say that Brown was the greatest to ever do that. He's also, like, when you go back and you look at it, he looks like a modern running back, a 6'1", 6'2", 220, 230 pound man, playing against guys who are 250 at the heaviest, which is an advantage for him, but also tells you what kind of physical specimen he was to be able to run like that and make moves like that at that size, at that era. So I think he's one of the few guys who can play the modern game. It is obviously different, but he's just it's like watching Babe Ruth, film of Babe Ruth and how big he was compared to the guys who were playing baseball back then.
Jace, do you agree that he was probably Colin Kaepernick with all those exploits in an era where that wasn't accepted and you couldn't talk like that, and it was more foreboding to be like that during segregation and such, that makes him maybe one of the most important NFL players of all time, because now you look back on his stances. He was right. I mean, end of the day, you talk about one of the more important players, not one of the just best players, but important players, and the modern day player has to be Jim Brown.
Like I always say it this way. If you're an entertainer, you're in the sports and entertainment field, you have the right to say whatever you want to say. But the crowd generally, for a lot of guys, the crowd, tunes you out. There are a handful of guys who can say whatever they want to say and have the impact that they want to have. And Muhammad Ali and Kareem and Jim Brown are on a short list of those guys who they can say whatever it is they want to say and voice their opinion. And people may get pissed off, but right after that, they go, how much is the ticket? I hate that Muhammad Ali guy. He's a loudmouth. He's a this. How much does it cost? Yeah. Oh, it's on pay-per-view. How much do I have to pay? Oh, Jim Brown's playing. What's it? Ticket? Oh, I hate what he said. What's the ticket? Yeah, like that's how that works with guys like that. And it may not be fair, it may not be right, but that's how it works. If you're that talented, you can say whatever you want.
Couple NFL questions for you. Cowboys are talking potential extension about Dak Prescott. Dak's kind of got him over a barrel again, if you think about some of the parameters that he has in his contract. How important is the 2023 season to the Cowboys and Dak Prescott that they finally get somewhere? I mean, I'm starting to look at the Joel Embiid of the NFL here.
Wait a second. Does it ever matter? Come on, does it ever really matter?
I'm asking important questions, but then I realize, no, it doesn't.
Cowboys. It's just a soap opera. That's all it is, Dan.
Ugh.
When they win, whether they lose, it doesn't matter.
So true.
It doesn't matter. Terry's printing money in AT&T Stadium. He's just, it's a joke. It doesn't count. Oh my God, Dak's not very good. Well, we know Dak is not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. They still got to pay him. Oh, Dak is so bad, we got to cut him. Okay, well, that just adds to the soap opera. It's just a soap opera with the Cowboys. Winning and losing doesn't ultimately really matter to the Cowboys. The soap opera matters to the Cowboys.
How do you feel about Super Bowl 60 being played in wine country, and Merlot's being served in the alleyway there at Santa Clara, and brie and cheese and little wiener dogs, and I mean,
well, you know where I went.
I want a hamburger, dude, and a beer.
Where I went to college.
Of course I do. You went to that prep school known as Stoffel.
There's no place better than Northern California, my man. That is it. There's no place.
Dude,
better.
you can't have a Super Bowl where you don't sell hamburgers and hot dogs.
They'll sell hamburgers and hot dogs. They got a Guy Fieri restaurant in there. What are you talking about? They're selling burgers and dogs. I was just there. I was there for games this last season, and I went there for a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. They sell plenty of dogs and burgers. Don't put out
when
that
I went to the last game there, he had something over his arm. He goes, "Sir, caviar, chip, or cracker?" I went, "Dude, I want a beer and a hot dog. Please do me a favor, okay?" I mean,
yeah, whatever. You live in San Diego. I mean, that's
not. Sean Payton's impact.
Oh, you changed that one really. Let's go left.
I don't like talking about money. See, I'm more like Jalen Hurts. You know, I'm more about the team.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. So, what about Sean Payton? You're full of crap. Okay. Oh my God.
Sean Payton, you think this guy really turns around Russell Wilson?
Yeah, because I mean, Russell's under pressure from two perspectives. Number one, he just played a crappy season. Number two, this is the guy he's always wanted to play for. Like, if it doesn't work with this guy, hey, Russ, it's on you, pal. If you can't play well for Sean Payton, it's on you. It ain't on, like the offensive coordinator from last year. It's not the head
Daniel
coach
Hackett.
Yeah, it's not like, that schmuck. He wasn't very good. It's his fault. No. You got the guy you wanted. The guy who coached Drew Brees, won a Super Bowl, got to the playoffs a bunch of times, helped Drew Brees set a bunch of records, go to the Hall of Fame, blah, 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 blah. This guy knows what he's doing. It's on you, pal. And you begged for him, too. You begged for him to come and coach.
Yeah, but Jace, isn't both guys? I mean, look, Sean Payton had Drew Brees.
Sean, look, I understand how it really works, but I'm talking about public perception and perception that Russell Wilson has to live with. If Russell Wilson does not make this work, it's on Russell Wilson. So it's all on him right now.
Cake bed Merlot, please, and a nice little Chianti.
I don't even drink wine. I don't even know who you're talking to. Okay?
I'm talking to the waiter. Most people have vendors at football stadiums. In Santa Clara, they have waiters.
Okay. It's a classy place. It's a classy place. You wouldn't necessarily know what that's
wait a
about.
minute. You're not suggesting that those are true 49er fans.
You went to UM. That's right.
Hold on. You're not suggesting that those are true 49er fans.
Hey, look, dude, I was here in the 80s. I went to college in the 80s. I know what the true 49er fans were, and they were the same wine sippers and snobs in the 80s that they are now. Yeah, and you know what they did? They broke out tables with checkered cloths and drank wine in the parking lot. It was no different back then. Don't kid yourself. It's not a rough and tumble guy. They haven't been rough and tumble since they were at Kezar, and it was working class, and it was union guys going, and it was all, union guys and all the Irish and Italian cops. That's what it was at Kezar.
Oh, see how we threw in the Italian guys from North Beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's what it was. You want to know what it was? I'm telling you, that's what it was.
You threw all the Italians in from North Beach at Pasta Pomodoro. Okay, I got it.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. And all, yeah, right? That was the crowd back in the 50s and 60s. Before they had to, I'll tell you, I covered a game in Kezar, a high school game in Kezar. There were like 200 people there. There were more seagulls in the stands than there were people.
Hey,
that was a spooky place. Somebody in the middle of the game, somebody goes, didn't Dirty Harry shoot the guy in this place?
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's where it happened. Yes, that was Kezar.
Hey, get this though. I went to that place, and that is one of the coolest places on the planet because the Raiders played there too.
Yeah.
And they've downsized that place, but that Kezar Stadium, man, that's got a lot of history there.
The old
if you ever
the
go,
old
they
place
play high
was-
school games there now.
Yeah, it's a soccer stadium in the new high school. Like I think Sacred Heart High School still plays there. It's Kevin Gogan's alma mater. Sacred High School. That's a tough
killer,
guy.
man. I didn't know that. Jace, have a
Okay,
great
yeah.
weekend,
All
my
right, dude,
friend.
I'll talk to you. Be good.
You got it. That's our friend Jason Cole. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Big Sil! National Football Show. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, man. Thank you guys so much for doing that. As you guys always do each and every single day. Love the fact that you guys are making the show grow so much, man. By the way, Big Joe and Xander sent over some of the numbers that you guys have had since like the first of the year. It's been crazy. I mean, dude, we're one of the most watched shows in all of Philadelphia right now. That's a fact. So we totally appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. It's crazy. I won't name anybody, but there's certain stations in that market that don't have a bigger audience than our show does. And we appreciate it. By the way, I wrote down the 10 best offenses as of May 19th. As we're getting ready for June 1, and we're getting ready for maybe Howie to go shopping a little bit extra too when it comes to getting some linebackers. Maybe, I don't know if he'll get it. You think Howie shops for a number 3 guy to give Quez a little bit of competition in training camp? I don't know. I think that could be one of the battling parts that you could see a team bring in somebody like a veteran wide receiver to make Quez have to work for that number 3 job. Hey, by the way, you should be rooting for Quez to win that job. You should be rooting for him. Okay? Hey, Neil, wait a minute. JM, that's your job. Jason reads it. Not one mention? That's your job. Those guys read it. How many times are we going to have a conversation about Eric Allen with Jason Cole? He knows it. Plus, Jason, I'm on his panel. He told you that. So when I put 25 names together for him, Howard Balzer's the guy you got to worry about, not Jason. Because when I put the 25 names together for Jason Cole every year, Jarrett Bell, the guy in Tampa, the guy in Miami, Orlando Salguero, that's why we get him on. When I put all those names together, Eric Allen's on that list. Okay? Jason Cole will be reminded when I put the 25 names together. Big O? Hey, maybe we should get the Big O on. You guys can make a pitch to another guy who's a Hall of Fame voter, and you guys could talk to him about getting Eric Allen in. I think that's cool. Big O went to school with me. How you doing? Julio Jones for 3. He's a little overdue, but I'll take him as a 3. Got to worry about his ankles. You know, I don't think you get 17 games out of him. I think you could probably get 11. You know, you'd probably get 11 games. Okay. Whatever, dude. Let me give you my top 10. I used to listen to him on QAM. I'm going to behave right now. I'm not going to. Did Julio Jones underachieve to you? Well, what are you asking? Tone, what are you asking him to do? In his career? No. I think Julio Jones is going to be a guy that you're going to debate on Hall of Fame. I don't think no. Because when you're a wide receiver, you're kind of a product of where you are, and you're not really going to go anywhere. You know, big-time elite wide receivers don't win Super Bowls. They rarely win them. Not everybody's Jerry Rice. You know, some of the greatest wide receivers in the history of the sport, more of them have never won a Super Bowl or a championship. Like, look at the big players in the game today. Here are the top wide receivers in the NFL today. Justin Jefferson, has he won a Super Bowl? No. Has he gotten close? No. Devontae Adams? No. DK Metcalf? No. A.J. Brown? No. Tyreek Hill? Has. Jamar Chase? No. Stephon Diggs? No. All the elite wide receivers who you consider number one, there's like 2 or 3 that may have won. Cooper Kupp? Okay. Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill. CeeDee Lamb? No. Devontae Smith? No. So, I mean, when you talk to me about elite wideouts, you're making it sound like these guys win Super Bowls. So Julio Jones falls into the land of DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown? Okay, well, he falls in line with everyone else, Devontae Adams included, Justin Jefferson included, D-Hop, DeAndre Hopkins, all those great players, and everyone considers these guys great. It's funny, you don't win Super Bowls with those guys. Isn't it crazy? You could have a number 1 wide receiver on your football team and not win with them. It's almost like you have a number 1 wide receiver on your team. Shit, I'd rather have a back that's productive. You can catch passes. Wide receivers cost money, and you don't get anywhere with them. Mike Evans? Okay. Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp. Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, and who else? Who do we say? Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp. But, okay, so what you got is 3 guys versus 20. You don't win with star wideouts. Tyreek Hill, that's the other guy. OBJ wasn't a number 1. He was the number 3 in Los Angeles. He wasn't a number 1. He was behind Robinson. Come on, man. He wasn't a number 1 wideout in Los Angeles. Wasn't even remotely close. And got hurt, and they still won it. I wouldn't put OBJ. OBJ hasn't been a number 1 wide receiver in 5 years. 5 years he hasn't been. He's like a number 2. He's a good 2. Look at what Patrick Mahomes won with. Juju Smith-Schuster. So wait a minute. Juju Smith-Schuster has a Super Bowl ring, but A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and DK Metcalf don't? Solid. So I won a Super Bowl with a guy that I'm paying $900,000 to versus a guy that you guys are all paying $20 million. Effective. Effective. Michael Thomas, number 1. What's he won? Kelsey's his number 1. It wasn't my conversation. My conversation was wide receivers don't win you Super Bowls that are the elite guys. The facts prove it out. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. I could name you 20 elite receivers, and I'll give you 3 of them that have got Super Bowl rings. Oh, okay. So Yale goes, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. Okay. It's funny. Hurts isn't the best quarterback in the league, but you pay $20 million for a wide receiver that doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. The Vikings are going to pay $30 million a year for a wide receiver that will not get near a ring. You actually think Justin Jefferson's going to get near a ring in Minnesota? Tim Brown? I think Tim Brown won that ring when he was with the Buccaneers, not in his Raider days. Raiders, they got to the tuck game, I think. I think he was on the tuck game. Yeah. Hey, real quick. I wrote these down. My 10 best offenses. I got Lions 10. I got Ravens 9. I got the Cowboys at 8. I got the 49ers at 7. I got the Jags at 6. I got the Chargers at 5. I got the Bills at 4. Here are your top 3 offenses in the NFL. Hey, Fly, I'm talking about today's NFL. We're not doing a history class here. Bengals at 3. Eagles at 2. Chiefs at 1. Someone goes like this to me. Who's passing over there in San Fran? Does it matter? They get to NFC title games. D4. It's not about whether they're not going to have a good offense. They win 12, 13 games every year, no matter who the quarterback is. Their problem is winning a Super Bowl. That's the problem with the Niners right now. The problem doesn't matter. Don goes like this. Who's the quarterback? Does it matter? They had 3 different quarterbacks last year get them to a Super Bowl. They had Garoppolo, Lance, and Purdy. Did it matter? How many times do you think you could see? You think the Eagles could have got to a Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks on your roster with Gardner Minshew and Ian Book? Absolutely not. You wouldn't have got to a Super Bowl with Gardner Minshew and Ian Book. You're going to end your season with Ian Book as your quarterback. I don't think so. I don't think so. Hey, next week, we're absolutely packed. Keith Jones is going to join us. Gary Cobb, obviously, on Monday. Bruce Arians promised us that he'll step in with us next week. Seth Joyner, too. Seth also liked the fact that I put him on my top 10 list. He said, Big Sills, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So you go back onto my Twitter page at Dan Sileo Show or JAKIB Sports. You'll see that he liked it. I had to put him on my top 10. I think Seth's the most complete linebacker the Eagles have had in a long time. And maybe in the entire Super Bowl era, him and Bergie. So again, have yourselves a great weekend. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. I appreciate it. God bless all of you. Tone, spectacular stuff. Xander, Big Joe, thank you very much. We'll see you Monday, 3 to 6 Eastern, and we will catch you on the flip side.